Good afternoon, patrons, and welcome to the April 2018 Patroncast. It's that time again. Welcome back to the Patroncast. I think I know what I want to talk about this month. I'm going to talk about the Fallout 3 video. The Fallout 3 video. Like, you know, if this video were captioned, just like, imagine like I put the in italics, because this is, actually no, capitalize it and put it in italics, because this is the Fallout 3 video. In case you haven't been following this, I think I've talked about this on, I mentioned this on Twitter. I can't remember if I actually came up with it in time for... No, I must have been planning this long enough that it theoretically would have been around in a previous Patroncast, but I can't remember whether I actually mentioned it. Possibly I did. In case I didn't, this is basically my measured, you know, just a quick little video I was planning to do, talking about how Fallout 3 is actually pretty damn good, and how it actually has aged pretty well, and some of the mechanics are really interesting, and some of the unique ideas it came up with that weren't in New Vegas and Fallout 4 are actually really cool, interesting ideas that, you know, mean that actually the game is really unique and a really interesting entry into the Fallout franchise. Then I kind of just kept making notes about that, made notes, wrote a different set of notes, turned those notes into a plan, turned some of that plan into a script and some of it into more detailed notes. Then somehow it ended up about 22,000 words long. I realised I had a notepad document with 22,000 words in it. So luckily I speak quite fast. So where we've got to with this ridiculous mega video is I've recorded the audio. So I've actually sat down with my notepad document of 22,000 words and figured out how long it takes me to read about 22,000 words, including pauses and emphasis and a couple of retakes when I fluff something or got the emphasis wrong in a sentence or whatever. And it turns out it was, I think it's about 2.5 or 3 hours. That'll probably be a little bit shorter because there'll be me getting a sentence wrong and deciding I want to say a sentence again. That'll just kind of edit close together. So it'll probably be 2.5 hours or something. It's going to be a mega video. The problem is, originally I thought, okay, and I can just talk, and we can have some footage of Fallout 3 in the background. Just record some nice footage of Fallout 3 to go in the background. Then I realised, if I want to talk about, very specific mechanical things, obviously I need to have those things on screen while I'm talking about them. So then basically I need to do a 100% playthrough of Fallout 3. So basically I had to do 100% speedrunning of Fallout 3. So that was fun. So that took about 20 hours. I think I was able to about 100% Fallout 3 in about 20 hours, which I'd say is a pretty damn good time. Then I realised, of course, I wanted to make some points about New Vegas. And obviously, while I was talking about that, what I'm talking about should be on screen as well. So I also had to play a whole bunch of New Vegas. And then I realised I wanted to kind of, make some comparative points with other Bethesda games. So I had to record some Skyrim. And then I realised I wanted to talk about game openings. And the best kind of game opening I wanted to talk about as an example of a really good, interesting game opening for my discussion on Fallout 3's opening was Mass Effect 1. So I needed to go and record Mass Effect 1's opening. Oh god, what else is there? I think there's more. I can't remember. So I think there's about, right now there's 2.5 odd hours of audio that's been recorded. And about 20 hours, no, that's just Fallout 3. There must be more than that. No, it's 20 hours once I've hacked out giant periods of silence. So I think it's about 25 hours total of Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Skyrim, Mass Effect 1, and probably some other stuff I can't even remember at this point because this video started driving me mad. And it's very slow to edit together, because when I want to, put a particular bit of footage in, I need to go and find it out of 25 hours of footage. And I've left myself little markers in my editing program. I just kind of went for it once, just kind of leaving markers saying, okay, this is this quest, and this is where this quest begins, and here's where this quest begins, and here's a bit that you want to use in the bit where you're talking about the combat and diddly-diddly-dee. But even then, it's very slow going to edit it together. So as a result of that, I suspect it's going to take about... How long is it going to take? I think I've done 15 minutes of it, so there's about 2 hours 15 left. It's going to take, if I could do it in 12 hours, I would consider that really good. I'm going to say it's going to be more 15, 16 hours. So, it's nearly depending on how many hours I'm doing in a day dedicated to this, it's 1 or 2 days of solid work on that. Excluding, of course, the 1 or 2 solid days of work I've already done recording, and however many hours I spent in the evening writing the damn thing. So basically this is the most inefficient video I've ever made. Because the amount of hours I've spent on this. And because I've been spending so much time on this, I've been spending less time on other stuff. So we've kind of eaten into the backlog a bit. Like, normally, like, by the beginning of a week, I like to have, like, most of that week, like, done. Like, you know, recorded, edited, rendered, ready to be uploaded, ready to go. But unfortunately, we don't really have that right now. Claire normally, like, traditionally, Claire does, like, the series. She edits the series, and I edit the one-off. Claire's been doing a fair few one-offs while I've been busy with the Fallout 3 thing. That's still no closer to being done. I you know, hopefully, like, next week or something. I think, like, a week today, if this goes out. So, yeah, this should be going out on Sunday. You should be hearing this on Sunday if you listen to it the day it goes out. So, I'm hoping a week today, or, like, maybe on Saturday or so. I don't know. Like, it's going to be a day next week. Like, you know, hopefully. So my hope for it is it's actually going to be pretty big. You know, it's going to be one of those videos that actually gets spread around a bit and actually gets a bit of attention and stuff. Because honestly, if it just like gets the same number of views as like any of my other Fallout videos, then making this video has been the stupidest idea ever. But it's been, well, I was about to say, it's been really good. It's been really fun making a really long video. It's kind of been fun at times. It's also been a reminder that, yeah, making really long, really heavily edited, like, discussion piece videos where you have to discuss an entire game, blimey, that's stressful. It's really stressful. Yeah, if I ever do this again, just don't let me. Just stop me. So that's what we've been doing there. Oh god, the Fallout 3 video. I really hope people enjoy it, because otherwise it's been one hell of a waste of time. Anyway, let's crack into the questions. We'll start at those that were asked first, I'd say, and work our way through. John, you've referenced your long list and short list of games many times in the Patroncast. How long is the short list and how short is the long list? Well, okay, surely you should have asked us. Wait, hang on, no, I got that. Never mind. It was phrased in a joke way. How long is the short list and how short is the long list? I see what you're doing there. Well, actually, okay, that's an oversimplification. What there actually are 3 tiers of list. Okay? This is not a good system. I'm not claiming this is a good system, but it's the system I use. What there is basically, there's games that are in the shortlist, and the shortlist, because it's like, you know, short, is games where basically we believe either I've already like taken, you know, I've already kind of got review code for it, or it's a game that's like, you know, been out forever and like it could happen at any time. So it's a case of sometimes I've actually already recorded these videos, they're just waiting to be released. Sometimes they're games where I already own them and we're just kind of waiting for a good slot for them. So a really good example of that is the original Crackdown on the Xbox 360, which has been a video I've been kind of meaning to as like, you know, a big video, maybe as like, you know, the big one-off on Saturday or something for some time. It hasn't actually been recorded yet, but it's just kind of sitting there in the shortlist. There's this new indie game that just kind of came out, its first iteration on itch.io, called Beacon, that I've been watching for a while. I've kind of been, I think I heard about that like a couple of years ago. It's finally actually come out. I have recorded that video already. That might come out this next week, or it might get shuffled out a little bit. There's no desperate rush on that one, to be honest, so that may or may not happen. So that's an example of the shortlist, like games that have already been received and are happening at some point soon. Another one actually is Judgment Apocalypse Simulator, which I believe has just come out. I think it was an early access and now it's just come out for real, so that's kind of one I've been wanting to do. The long list, meanwhile, is basically a really long list of games, understandably, where basically, like, I'm keeping an eye on them, and some of them are out and some of them aren't. I don't intend to do them imminently, but they're just floating around. So an example of that is, and I've actually got them in front of me, by the way, because what I do is I keep a Google Calendar. That's how I kind of plan what video is going to happen when, and in the bottom row, because I keep it set to 4 weeks, and the bottom row, the 4 weeks, has just a whole bunch of, like, ideas, suggestions, etc. So, for example, the game Clandestine has, which is like a co-op game where one of you's like a spy and one of you's like on the security cameras or whatever. Like, I've long had it in mind that me and Claire could do that as a co-op thing. So that's just kind of floating around as an idea. There's this game called Community Inc., which is like a building survival sort of thing, like midway between like almost like a farm builder and a management game and also a survival game. I've been thinking about doing that for a while. I received code for Demolish Demolish and Build 2018, which looks a little bit ropey, but might be fun as a one-off. I've had that for a while. That's just kind of something that's going to be floating around. Then there's games like, the things that are really well known. Like, I've just got to remind myself, hey, at some point, maybe check out PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and actually make a video for that, even though I personally prefer Fortnite, so maybe I shouldn't, because there's, some hardcore fans of Battlegrounds. So, when, the brief time I have played it, I didn't enjoy it as much as Fortnite. Maybe just don't do that one. There's a little indie game called Another Lost Phone that someone drew to my attention at one point. There's a VR game called Budget Cuts coming soon that's probably kind of ready to be moved up from the long list to the short list, because that's coming out very soon. I think it looks really, really cool. There's loads of games like that. In fact, I'll just kind of read you a few of them that are there. Like, just in kind of the long list, we've got games like Arcanum, Black Sea Odyssey, Impossible Animals, Kerbal Space Program, the Making History DLC, McRogue, One Shot, Planetary Annihilation, Stronghold, The Magic Circle, World to the West. That's just a list of games. Some of them are out, some of them aren't out, some of them have release dates, some of them don't have release dates and may never actually happen. In fact, actually, Claire recently did a quick kind of once over these games to see if any of them had picked up release dates. One of them has ceased to exist, which is a real shame. So that was kind of fun. Sometimes these games just disappear and you never actually hear about them again. So it's things like that. Then there is a long list, because I can't fit like literally every game that exists or ever gets suggested in the Reddit suggestion thread or on here inside a Google Calendar. They just wouldn't fit. The long list is for games that I think have a reasonable chance of entering the shortlist as soon as there's space for them. There's a long list which I don't have, because that's partly maintained by Claire, because she's the one who actually goes through Steam, checking off literally every game on Steam as they kind of come out, and kind of makes recommendations for ones she thinks I might be interested in checking out. So Claire's got a long list of every suggestion we receive, and occasionally we'll go through that and promote that from the long list to the long list, and then the long list slowly moves up to the short list. But of course, stuff in the short list will occasionally get bumped out for new stuff that comes along, because occasionally something will just happen, and I'll just change the schedule because I didn't know that was about to happen, it's now happened. So episode 1 Racer, which was released a few days ago, basically I wanted to make a video of that immediately, not least as May the 4th was about to happen, the whole May the 4th be with you thing. So I kind of wanted to do a Star Wars video on May the 4th, and episode 1 Racer came out, so that was just perfect. So as a result, that got moved up to that Friday. So that just happened, and as a result, I can't even remember what got bumped out, to be honest. I think I might have just swapped round. I think The Witness was on Friday and went to Saturday. I can't remember what was originally supposed to be on Saturday. Possibly Saturday was originally supposed to be the Fallout 3 video, but that just got bumped out. So that's kind of how the lists work. Right, that's question 1. I think there's 148, so I should probably move on. Will you be playing more Phoenix Points? Absolutely. I've actually been sent the backer build, which has got a tiny bit more than what I've already seen. But to be honest, at this point, I probably won't make a video just of the backer build, because I think the only bit I haven't seen is a procedurally generated thing. I'll probably wait for the actual final game and the campaign and stuff before we actually play any more, so we can see more about the upgrading and all of that, rather than just kind of doing a bit more of the combat. John, what are your top tips for getting into Oxford? Ooh, what a question, Samarius. That's an interesting one. Well, okay, depending on your course, you'll almost certainly need pretty much top grade. So, whatever your final exams are, if you're in England, the UK, sorry, if you're in the UK, wait, are these even A-levels anymore? No, I think I might have shown my age there. I think isn't there a new system now? I swear there was supposed to be a new system at some point, but I can't remember how it's changed exactly. Look, just get top grades. Though actually, wait, hang on. You can't so much anymore. Yeah, you used to have to get top grades, because it used to be the top of the A-level was an A grade. I think there's now A stars, but I don't know if Oxbridge are insisting on all A stars. I would doubt it, but maybe for the most competitive courses they would. Anyway, try and get top grades, that's a given. But honestly, your best bet is probably to make sure you're prepared for the interview. If you can get any form of interview training, anyone who's done similar interviews, even if you can't find anyone who's actually done an Oxbridge interview and thus might be able to do a mock one with you, just getting someone who's done traditional work interviews to maybe do one with you, that might be a good idea. Because what's going to throw you off the most potentially is going to be the slightly obscure interview format. If that's something you're completely unfamiliar with, it can just kind of slightly throw you off and you don't perform at your best because you're in a very unusual setting, dealing with very unusual formats. That's kind of important. And of course, lots of people are going to have top grades, so doing some interesting extracurricular stuff can be very, very useful, especially if that extracurricular stuff might be useful to college life. That might give you an edge. So, for example, most colleges will have choirs, for example, and most colleges are going to need an organ scholar. So, if you happen to be very good at the organ, or you're a very good singer, and you might actually be able to be in a choir, for example, or, you might be able to represent the college in, say, on University Challenge. Like if you're very good at quizzing, for example, that might actually genuinely be useful, because if you can demonstrate that you can in some way very actively contribute to college life, that might actually give you an edge over someone with the same grades who has not demonstrated that. So honestly, there's no guaranteed way. It's very, very competitive, but that's probably your best set of bets. Would you ever go back to Dead Space, particularly Dead Space 2, which is perfect for the channel? I would not bet against it. I would strongly imagine there is going to be a Dead Space 2 miniseries at some point. I don't know when. It's not imminent, but I think a little midweek miniseries that kind of mirrors how we did the first game in Dead Space 2, quite possibly. Because people do... Well, actually, in all fairness, it's interesting. Like, I've seen some people say Dead Space 2 is the best of the trilogy. Some people seem to actually prefer the original Dead Space. No one really seems to prefer the last one. But there does seem to be a bit of argument about Dead Space versus Dead Space 2. So I would not be surprised to see it again, not at all. Emily, hello! The most boring, generic, lame question ever. Tips for surviving and passing exams in exam season. I'm currently swamped with 7 uni exams. I need all the motivation and help I can get outside watching your videos. Well, it kind of depends, how you learn. You need to know how you learn, because tips aren't going to always work for everyone. I can't just tell you one thing that's going to work for you. Let me give you an example. You see, for me, I have a very good visual memory. So I can look at something and remember it really well. But I've got very bad, memory for things I hear. So I forget people's names. And, if people just say things to me, I very often can't always remember them. But I'm very good at remembering distinct visual patterns. So what I did when I got to my my final exams was I basically... I created essay plans for a very large number of essays that might have come up, and then I started arranging them very, very carefully. So I had them structured in paragraphs where there was proper formatting and bullet points, and then I used highlighters to kind of, highlight particular words, sentences, topics. And then when I walked into the exam, if one of these specific essays I'd planned for came up, then immediately I'd just get one of my kind of bits of rough working paper and I would sketch out my essay plan. And I knew the shape of it because I had a perfect visual memory of the shape of it. Once I had the shape of it and the colours, I could associate the colours with topics and I could start filling it out. And all of a sudden I had an essay plan that I'd pre-prepared in front of me because I had good visual memory. But that's not going to work for many people. Some people can work in all sorts of different ways. Back when I was at school, I used to remember obscure historical facts by putting them to song. So as a result, I to this day know certain facts about the Tudor rebellions, which is unusual. For example, I know that Lambert Simnel is not the Earl of Warwick. He's just a boy who Simmons thinks is the one, but he's not Richard of York's son. That's a Tudor rebellion, but it can be sung to the tune of Billie Jean. So as a result, I knew all about Lambert Simnel and his rebellion against, I think, Henry VII. The thing is, unfortunately, I didn't put that in the song, so I can't remember who he was rebelling against. But yeah, that's how I learnt my history in school. I set it to music. So, you know what? Basically, I can't give you a single way to do that, but I would suggest figure out the best way you have to remember things and then basically put all your notes into that exact mechanism and use your strength to your advantage there. That's probably the best advice I can give. John, what are your plans for XCOM in the future? Enemy Within isn't the same as Enemy Unknown. Oh, I know. And, I know some people are annoyed at that, but honestly, there's so much to learn in Enemy Unknown. There was enough to get my head around already. I didn't want to add in that extra layer of complexity. And, it did seem fairly evenly divided. Some people were really angry about that and, John, why are you doing Enemy Within? And some people were you know what, it makes sense. Enemy Within is for experienced players who have already, seen what Enemy Unknown's got. For a new player, it just adds in extra complexity that's going to make it more confusing. So, in the end, I think it was actually, some people saw one side, some people saw the other. I don't think I'll do like a full run of Enemy Unknown. The two things I've got planned are, once we're done with XCOM, which I think is actually pretty soon, really, then I would like to do, what's it called? The Long War mod. I'd like to do that as like a stream and just see how long I can survive. Because I'm told that's an absolute flipping nightmare. So that'll be fun. We'll do that as a stream at some point. And of course, XCOM 2 will happen at some point, but not immediately after XCOM 1. I do like to kind of spread these things out a little bit and not follow one game immediately by its sequel. So XCOM 2 will happen, but not quite imminently. How are you feeling now that Skyrim has finished? I feel fine with it, to be honest. Like, you know, it was kind of sad to record the last episode, and it took a lot of work to, like, put together the exact ending as it was, which I thought I was really happy with. I was glad it ended when it did. I think it ended at the right time. If anything, maybe I could have, like, you know, trimmed a little bit out of, like, the second third of it and kind of got to the ending a tiny bit faster. But for the most part, I think it actually worked really well. I'm glad we kind of, you know, we did the plot that we did. I'm glad that the overall kind of story arc had, like, multiple different phases to it, which is really cool. You know, I'm glad that we had a situation where people came to care about an NPC who's basically got no actual in-game personality at all, which was kind of cool, and we had that whole story built up. I'm glad it ended when it did. I think it ended well, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I think the final episode, like, had a lot of fun stuff in it, some, you know, some really tough fights and some obscure side stuff and all of that. So yeah, I feel good. I feel good about how it ended. We're not going to rush into the next Elder Scrolls series, but absolutely there will be another, yes. What's your favourite offline hobby? You think I have offline hobbies? I read a lot. I do read a lot. I like kind of doing that to kind of take my mind off, like, online and work stuff. So, like, I'll pretty much, like, read for a little bit before I go to bed every single day. In fact, I can't remember the last time I didn't read before I went to bed. So, basically, books. Books are my favourite offline hobby. Who would you rather narrate to the events of your life? Three Dog, Miss New Vegas, or Travis? Oh, obviously Three Dog. Three Dog is vastly superior. Like, New Vegas is definitely the better game than Fallout 3, but I've never really seen anyone ever say that they preferred Mr. New Vegas to Three Dog. Three Dog is vastly superior. Is Morrowind on your list of games to play? Oh, maybe, but maybe not quite so soon. If so, you plan to play it vanilla with mods that update the graphics to be more modern? I'll need to look into it, but I'll definitely do some form of upgrade to it. Like, at the bare minimum, we'll probably just kind of slightly polish up the textures. I know it just received the enhanced with Xbox One X thing. So I need to look into whether that's, you know, pretty and stable, or whether, like, a PC version with 10 bajillion mods might be a better option. But of course, yeah, some games, when you mod them to hell, yeah, you hit your frame rate and the stability goes down and all of that. So I'll need to look into what the best option for that is and what the best option for Oblivion the same is. So I'll look into that, but I haven't really done that research yet. I think you mentioned in a previous podcast that you used to work in marketing before YouTube. I did indeed. And that it was okay, but not fantastic. Oh, I may have been underselling it. It was good. I had a nice time. I did not mind working in that space. It was, you know, I got to work with good, clever people. I got to do intellectually stimulating work for the most part. I got to think and come up with plans and generally do fairly interesting stuff. For the most part, like, you know, I think it was a good career. Next to many jobs you can do in the world, there are many worse things to do than marketing. Unless, of course, you, like, you know, have a moral objection to working in marketing, which absolutely some people could very justifiably have. Lots of places, marketing can be less than ethical. I was lucky to always work in a place where I was never really asked to do anything that I considered massively unethical. I think we always kind of, you know, we were always pretty ethical in our marketing. We were always pretty much straight down the line. But anyway, on with the question. I'm currently applying to a graduate marketing program. I was wondering if you think it would be a tragic waste of time and $30,000. Ooh, that's a lot of money. Is there something you wish you'd known before choosing marketing? Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I never actually got a marketing qualification. I should point out, I basically just got my undergraduate degree, left when I was like 21, 22, whatever, and just basically went and got an assistant marketing role. Well, actually, technically, it was an assistant product role. Back then I was working in product where there's like elements of marketing, but there's also elements of like logistics and whatnot. And it's more of a generalist role. And then from that I just kind of transitioned into a junior marketing role, into a marketing role, and just kind of worked my way up from there over the course of about 7 years or so. So I never actually got a marketing qualification, but then I also had the advantage that, like, because my degree was from Oxford, that probably helps open some doors to you. I don't think it, like, it puts you 100% on easy street, but I think it does help you, get interviews, and probably helped me get into a junior position that I might not have been able to get into otherwise. Like, maybe if I hadn't had that advantage, then the only way to do what I actually did would have been to go on to get a marketing qualification. But I can't know that, you see. So it's kind of hard for me to advise, because you're asking me the advice on, like, a qualification that I never chose to take and have not looked into. So I don't necessarily think it would be a tragic waste of time and money, because, okay, $30,000 is a lot of debt, but, if you actually get a good marketing career going on, then you'll make that money back in your career, assuming that you don't think you were already on the route to what would have been a high-paying career elsewhere. But again, we're starting to play with alternate universes where I can't really advise, so I don't know. The specific question is there something you wish you'd known before choosing marketing? Honestly, not so much. I mean, like, it was a different landscape back then. Because back then, online marketing was a little bit smaller, and I just kind of fell into online marketing, and specifically online acquisition marketing, kind of by accident, and with a bit of a focus on just data analytics, because I happen to be really good at Excel. I just, I'm good at maths, so I just happen to be good at doing kind of data analysis, and that happened to be an area that grew, because over the 7 years I was working, more and more firms popped up that were looking to do kind of data-driven online marketing. So there were a lot of jobs, and there weren't enough people to fill them. So it kind of really worked in my favour kind of by accident. Whether you could do that again, I don't know. Now, probably, there's a whole cohort of people that know that happened, and thus there's loads more people with that exact skill set in the marketing marketplace. That was not a phrase. So I don't know. I mean, what worked for me was specialising in online marketing and data analytics. So if you happen to be, decent at maths and can teach yourself how to be really good with Excel, I still think Excel is a very, very valuable tool. So maybe learn Excel. I'm just going to say learn Excel, because Excel's good. I've made a video about that and everything. John, did you know there's a visual novel / RPG in development based on Aristophanes' Lysistrata? I did not, but before I recorded this video, I did actually click through and look at the Kickstarter project, given you actually provided a link to it. It worries me slightly that they misspelt Lysistrata. That's a concern, given it's typically anglicised with a Y at the beginning, not an I. So, but that might just be a language thing. Maybe in whatever their kind of native language is, Lysistrata is typically anglicised with an I, or not anglicised. Well, it's in English. I mean, the Kickstarter page is in English, which would suggest that, like, is there an English language country where Lysistrata is anglicised? I don't know of a country where Lysistrata will be anglicised with an I. Right, okay, that worried me a little bit, as did the fact that Lysistrata works as a play, because it's very political and dark and funny, and also very smutty and sexual in places, and, like, none of that really seemed to be represented in the trailer. Like, it's just a visual novel with some management aspects to it. So, like, it's a fun idea, but I kind of look at it and think that doesn't actually seem to have much in common with the play. Like, the stuff that makes the play work, I don't see how that necessarily works in, like, a visual novel RPG game. So I might give it a look as, like, a one-off, but I'm not 100% convinced that's necessarily a good idea. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? 7. Hey, John, have you ever played any of the Tropico games? I have not, but they've been recommended many times. So that's the sort of thing that would, like, just sit on the long list until I just kind of eventually turn them into a mini-series. I definitely feel like a little kind of Tropico mini-series could absolutely be a good thing, because it's been recommended to me many times. So absolutely at some point, I don't know when. John, we're very excited to say that my husband and I are going to be grandparents. We are debating what our grandparenting name should be. I'm leaning towards Granny, and my husband is pretty mum on his choice right now. What did you call your grandparents? Well, I actually have 5 grandparents, because some of my grandparents split up, which is actually why I'm in England. Because I'm not, well, I'm technically, I'm a full British citizen, to be precise, because I was born in this country to a naturalised parent and one native English parent. But I'm actually a second generation immigrant from Canada. Because that's where my mother's side of the family is from, and they moved over after the family there was a breakdown in the family. So as a result, I've actually got five grandparents, or did. The vast majority have now at this point passed on. Where my grandfather remarried. So I had my grandfather and his second wife. We called Dia. I don't know why. We just did. So there was my grandfather, and there was his new wife, who was Dia, and then there was my biological grandmother, who was the one who came over to the UK, and she was Granny, and then there was Grandad and Grandma, who are my dad's parents, and of all of them, only my grandma is still alive at this point. So yeah, I've lost four of our five grandparents. At this point, only Grandma is still alive, and she's not in the she's not in 100% health. She's she'll be around for a little bit, but she's not in great health. So those are my five grandparents. So yeah, that's Sorry, I just made myself sad. Gameplay related, will you be playing Far Cry 5? Maybe at some point, but not imminently. I kind of missed the launch window of that, so I find it very likely I'll give it a look-see at some point, but I don't know exactly when. P.S. When will we get to see all of the wall hangings that Claire made for you? We need to actually set aside some time to properly figure out how to actually attach them to the wall. I think they're all made now, we just haven't actually put them up yet. So we will try and find some time to put them up, and then hopefully we can share some photos with you next month. I'll never forgive you for not playing as Mercia. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't actually get a choice. Basically what happened was when they sent out the Thrones of Britannia early access copies, what they did was they basically said you get to pick one faction. So that people wouldn't all be on one faction, because they kind of wanted a good spread. So they basically, they said, tell us 3 factions you want to play as, and we will basically assign you one so that there would be a good spread of playthroughs of the different factions that would kind of kick off as they started we passed the embargoes and people started being allowed to put out footage. I requested Mercia as my top one. Then I requested Dublin, the one I already actually did the one-off video on with the Sea Kings. And then I requested East Angle as my third one. And I got given East Anglia, so I assume loads of people requested Mercia. So I'm not sure who got assigned Mercia. Basically, it's whoever the same day I started my East Anglia campaign started their Mercia campaign. Whoever that is, they got Mercia. So I have no idea who that was. So, yeah, that's why I wasn't playing as Mercia, because I wanted to play as Mercia, because it's a really interesting faction. It's quite small, and it's surrounded by, enemies, the Welsh on one side, and the Vikings to the north and to the east, and then Wessex is a slightly uneasy sort of ally to the south, who you don't really want to take on, because they're a lot bigger than you, and logically they're the closest thing to a friend you're going to have for some time. So, yeah, I did actually want to play as them, but I didn't actually get the option to. Is Thrones of Britannia good? I think it is. To the extent that I actually hope some of the ideas in it make it into 3 kingdoms. For example, I really like the fact that all of the sub-regions are now they're dedicated towns that specialise in what they specialise in, and they can't have garrisons and they can't have walls. I think that works really nicely because it makes the game very fast moving, it makes the game very dynamic. It means that really, really small forces actually have a reason to exist, because the problem in Warhammer 2 was there was basically no reason to ever travel around with anything other than a full stack army, because the penalties for creating a new army were so high. You wanted the most troops present with the smallest number of armies that you could muster. So as a result, yeah, you didn't really want to just have a small force wandering around with just a general and a handful of elite troops, because they might struggle to get past wall defences and garrisons, even of small sub-regions. But in Thrones of Britannia, it's really worth doing that. Plus, the AI actually seems pretty good. The AI seems solid. On the overmap, you see large empires moving forces around together for security, so they don't seem to be treating armies as individual things anymore. They seem to be actually thinking about all their armies as a group together, which is really cool. And in the battle map, the AI actually seems to be pretty good at putting its units in the correct positions, which is kind of cool as well. So, for example, I have seen in previous instances, not just in the campaign you've seen, but just like in other games I've been playing myself, that like if you've got, say, a general unit and the enemy's got a big army and only one or two of their units actually have a chance against your general, they do seem to attempt to prioritize getting those units into a position where they're going to be the ones that attack your general, which is kind of cool. And they're pretty good at using their cavalry to try and chase off anything. The cavalry doesn't flank so much anymore, but then that's not really what cavalry's for anymore. Cavalry now, because it doesn't get the charge bonuses and it's so soft and squishy, like cavalry, the old hammer and anvil doesn't work, which is good, because hammer and anvil has worked too well in too many Warhammers for decades at this point. So it's good that cavalry now instead has a more minor role of chasing off archers, because archers and javelin men are ludicrous murder machines. So cavalry is required just to basically keep them chased off. So instead now the hammer and anvil is, yeah, your skirmishers and your ranged units, and cavalry are just specifically anti-range, because cavalry used to be too powerful because they were both anti-range, they could chase off the range stuff, but they also were insane rout machines, where they could just get round the sides and then get round the back and then slam into the back of something that was engaged against your infantry, and then that unit would break, and then you could just basically wrap up the line. That doesn't work anymore. So I kind of think it works really nicely. The game balance is a bit different. I like the way the campaign map works. Admittedly, I'm not 100% convinced by the UI either. The UI is not perfect. Though admittedly, I like the unit cards a lot better than bloody Rome 2's unit cards. Rome 2, yeah, that had the worst unit cards in the entire franchise. They were awful. I still to this day struggle to tell the difference between some of them at a glance. It's terrible. But yeah, it's good stuff. I think it's a solid game. I think it's well worth a look. Especially as it's not even a full priced one. It is going to be cheaper than a normal new release would be because they're smaller. But I think it's kind of intriguing, especially as like each of the different like factions and cultures have their own unique, very different mechanisms. So like, you know, the Vikings get so much more money from raiding and particularly sacking cities, so that's actually viable for them, whereas anyone else you probably wouldn't bother because the amount of money you're making is not that great. And the Viking Sea Kings having to like constantly be engaging in war because they need the slaves coming in order to fund their economy, because otherwise they're not getting money and they're not getting happiness in. That's really cool as well. So like, you know, each faction feels different, not just from the starting positions, but from the different unique faction and cultural mechanics. So on that basis, yeah, I actually think it's a really, really solid entry, to be honest. Like, I can see myself playing it more than... Actually, in all fairness, I already have played it more than I played Mortal Empires. Like, Mortal Empires in Warhammer 2 disappointed me a little bit, because it just ran into the problem of, you know, sure, you've got an absolutely massive world, but it feels really unstructured to me, and once you get up to a certain size, you can basically just start steamrolling, and sure, it's kind of cool to go over to a new continent and find that someone else steamrolled over that entire continent, then you've got just like a massive force to actually take on over there, but like, it just felt unstructured to me, and it just had like massive total war sprawl to it, whereas this just feels like it's more elegantly put together. I think it's a good game anyway. I've always wondered how many views you've gotten since you've started. Could you share some statistics? Yes, indeed I can. I got these up especially because I saw this question ahead of time. So, total views in all time, which is, yeah, pretty much 5 years at this point, is 139,826,418 views. Lovely. Which translates to a watch time in minutes of 2,559,861,419 minutes, which translates in real to just shy of 5,000 years of watch time. 5,000 years of watch time. Absolutely flipping marvellous. Good stuff there. Good flipping stuff. The video, which has got the most actual watch time on it, is Fallout New Vegas Don't Starve, when I did the Don't Starve run of New Vegas, which actually has 13 million minutes worth of watch time by itself, which is equivalent to about 25 years. So that's some fun stats for you. Good day, John. By some inexplicable series of events, you've suddenly been appointed Prime Minister. That would certainly be inexplicable, because you can't actually be appointed Prime Minister in this country. You'd need to be the leader of a political party that holds the majority in our Parliament. But you know what? I'll just go with it. And Parliament's too confused to contest the matter. Yeah, based on the circumstances, I don't blame them. What's on your agenda? Ooh, I've got a good one. So, preventative healthcare. Preventative healthcare, because the thing is, like, actually, like, curing stuff is really cocking expensive. Like, it's so expensive to cure stuff. And we spend a lot of, well, every country spends huge amounts of money on curing things and relatively very little money on stopping people getting sick in the first place. So, huge amounts of money have to go into hospitals and accidents and emergency and stuff like that. And relatively small amounts of funds go into, at the steep end, things like GP surgeries and like walking clinics and stuff like that. But like beyond that, stuff that's actually just, generally good for the health of people. Because, think about the amount that things like, say, heart disease and obesity and other forms of unhealthy living probably cost the NHS later when they develop into serious problems. I mean, isn't the most logical thing in the world that the government would say, okay, that's really cocking expensive, and things like dealing with heart attacks and having to deal with replacing organs of some description, having to deal with all of that, that's really expensive, and it keeps the health service kind of tied down and bogged down with stuff that we could prevent. So why wouldn't we pay less money now to stop that showing up later? Like, wouldn't the most sensible thing in the world be to have, like, drop-in clinics for minor stuff, like, all over the shop? Like, every town in the UK should have, like, a really, really well-served drop-in clinic where you can just basically show up and you can see a doctor, like, immediately, or, like, with a short wait or whatever, and you can, like, describe any symptoms that you're worried about or whatever, and they can immediately try and deal with things. So things can be spotted early, because, like, if serious conditions can be spotted early, it's not only kind of going to massively increase the chance of survival, it's going to reduce the risk of complications, it's going to mean you have to spend less time in the actual health service. Like, it's going to save money, huge amounts of money. And in terms of, like, softer stuff, like, surely the thing the government should be doing is, like, doing anything it can to facilitate people exercising. Like, why do people have to spend large amounts of money on gym memberships when that's almost certainly going to be, like, a social good? I mean, surely, like, the best thing the government could do would be, build publicly owned gyms everywhere. And absolutely, we do have those. We've got leisure centres that have gyms, but sometimes they're few and far between and they're not particularly well set up. There should be more of them. If anything, not only should they be free, like, shouldn't the government potentially, say, give you a really modest rebate on your taxes if you go to them? Because that's the sort of good behaviour that's going to save money in the long run. And some people are not going to like that idea because it kind of, it feels like the government kind of getting involved in your business and, nanny state and whatever. But, like, if you could potentially financially incentivize people to be healthier, then people are going to live longer, healthier, happier lives, and our health service is going to be a lot less overburdened and generally be a lot cheaper. It just strikes me as a good idea. Put money into preventative healthcare rather than curing stuff. Stop stuff before it starts. That's got to be a good idea. Have you come across any games, I was originally thinking VR, but I'm interested in anything, that didn't make good videos, but that you'd recommend playing? Actually, one of those came up recently. It's very, very, very rare I actually, play a game for, an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then decide at one point, this does not make a good video, and I just stop, and I just delete everything. And it happened recently. And it happened with the Pillars of Eternity 2 backer build, which they sent me, because I'd played Tyranny. And it wasn't because it wasn't a good game. I think it was a very good game. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the quest structure. And it was gorgeous and interesting. And I liked lots of ideas about how it did dialogue and stuff. But there was a problem, which is it was very clearly made for people who put hours into the first Pillars of Eternity, because basically it just kind of starts you off not at the beginning, but at some point, I don't know exactly how far I was through the game. Like, it felt like I was pretty early in the game, but I had 4 party members with me, and I didn't know who any of them were, and I didn't know any of their abilities whatsoever, so I just kind of had these party members with me. And then it just kind of threw you into some quests and some combat, and I had no idea what was going on. Because, I played, Tyranny for a few hours, but I never played the original Pillars of Eternity, so I didn't know what was going on. I just thought, I'm not well representing the game. People who enjoyed the original Pillars of Eternity are just going to find this video, stupidly frustrating, because I blatantly don't know what I'm doing. And sure, I can figure out some basics, I can set up this character as a rogue and give them a dagger, and then give them the abilities to give them, more penetration, and then try and put them into sneak mode and get behind someone for a backstab. But, After that point, it just becomes a great big messy cluster flip, and I don't know what's happening on screen. Characters are just kind of like hitting and being hit and healing each other, and I'm not really engaging in any of it, so I don't feel like I'm doing a good job like talking about the game or representing it, so I just had to stop it. And there probably will be a Pillars of Eternity 2 video, but I'm going to wait for the actual game to come out so I can actually play through, like, you know, the tutorial and remind myself exactly what's going on, because I couldn't remember what's going on. And I don't play enough of those kind of, like, you know, old school RPGs that are now real time but with pausing, like Pillars of Eternity or Tyranny. Like, I'm not familiar enough with the genre to be able to be thrown into one that I haven't played recently and know what's going on. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a really good game. I really enjoyed stuff about it, but I don't think I was capable of making a good video, so that's a rare example of something I actually deleted. Lately, I have the impression that Steve is less present on the channel due to other falling out. Yes, indeed. I don't know. Jokes come and jokes go, and sometimes things just kind of quietly get retired over time. Steve had his moment, and I just happened to not use him. He might make a resurgence at some point, but you're right, kind of naming every random character Steve is a thing I haven't really done lately. Sometimes I just come up with kind of random names instead of just Steve. So, you know what? The age of Steve is not necessarily over, but, you know, it's dormant for the time being. John, with your recent mentions of love for Power Rangers, have you seen History of the Power Rangers on Atop the Fourth Wall? Oh, of course I have. I've watched the whole thing, and the really annoying thing is, of course, because they've been at various points taken down and put back up, and the service that was hosting them disappeared, it's very hard to find them. Some of them now, only the audio exists, and he's kind of redone some of them, but not others, so it's kind of hard to rewatch them. But yeah, I very, very much enjoyed watching those, yes. John, what games would you like to cover on the channel but feel that the fanbase is too toxic that you decide not to? Well, actually, I think I mentioned one earlier. I don't know whether the fanbase is toxic, but I have basically decided I probably won't play PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds just because I played it briefly at one point, didn't have a great time with it, personally prefer Fortnite. And I feel like that's not a good place to go into a game from, really, where, like, you know, there's two big ones in the world, and that's not the one I like. So probably Battlegrounds will just not happen, not least as, like, it seems to be the slightly more hardcore one, so, you know, people expect people to actually be, like, good and skilled at the game, so I'm not sure about that. But then again, I was kind of terrible at Fortnite. Though, and actually, in all fairness, in Fortnite, I did actually play on the Xbox One version, specifically so that everyone would be using a controller, so I wouldn't be at a disadvantage and no one could complain about that. So who knows? Maybe I could play. Battlegrounds on one of the console versions as well. Though actually, I think the console versions are not so good, aren't they? Well, they had problems at launch. I think it was the Xbox One launch version of Battlegrounds had a lot of problems. I think they might have been fixed by now. But yeah, I'd say probably Battlegrounds is a good example of one I don't touch. Like, Call of Duty is something I just won't go for because it's not for me. Like, that's just a pure example of a game that's clearly, I am not the target audience and I'm not gonna understand it. I look at it like, you know, the times I've looked up the cutscenes online, I look at it and scratch my head and I'm so bloody confused. I'm just so confused by the whole thing. I don't understand why the plot is what it is. It just strikes me as just ridiculous. So, like, clearly I'm not the target audience, so I'm just not going to touch it because it would just upset people. So, like, I think those are some good examples. You talk a lot about how you've improved your editing, videos, etc. Is there something about how you used to do videos or the channel that changed that you wish you could go back to? Ooh, interesting. Honestly, not so much. Like, the channel hasn't evolved massively. Like, broadly, if you go back years, we're doing a similar sort of thing. Maybe, like, it used to be a bit more on the structured side. Like, you know, when we did series in the old days, it was pretty much exclusively, you know, like, challenge runs or whatever. And one-off videos were very rare. Now one-off videos are a lot more common, so there's a lot more variety on the channel. And while we still do some challenge runs, like, you know, in some ways Frost is kind of a challenge run if you like, equally we do kind of many series that are just pretty chill and where, like, the structure of it comes more from roleplay than from challenge runs. And, like, that's always been kind of the case because the Kill Everythings were both challenge runs, but then equally they kind of started as challenge runs but then became more roleplay as time went by, which is why I think Fallout 3 Kill Everything is so much better than Fallout New Vegas Kill Everything, because Fallout New Vegas Kill Everything is kind of like it's a challenge run with a bit of roleplay over the top to keep it interesting, whereas Fallout 3 was just straight up roleplay where, like, we didn't even worry about, like, the actual technical challenge of trying to kill everything. That was not even a concern. So as a result, like, maybe we could have introduced that sooner, but to be honest, not really. Like, I'm pretty happy with where we are and how we got here. After a series of Thrones of Britannia, do you think you'll ever go back to do something on Rome 2 or Attila Total War? Interesting. Attila is not my favourite. I think it's very good. I personally don't like the almost like, you know, the slightly grim apocalyptic tone to the whole thing. So, even though I think it's a good game, it's not really my personal favourite. That's just a personal preference, so I think it is actually a very, very good one indeed. Like, for what's next? I mean, I'm probably thinking maybe after Thrones, that might be the time for Crusader Kings 2. Possibly, I don't know. But in terms of, you know, what would happen next in Total War, like, you know, I'm using over Empire, which I think gets a bad rep, and I think it's better than most people give it credit for. And I'm also thinking about Shogun 2, because Shogun 2 is just a really good one. Honestly, Shogun 2 would be quite a short series. Like, in my experience, I think, like, the main Shogun 2 campaign, though it's a fun, interesting campaign, it's also quite a short, structured campaign. Like, it doesn't take that long, to my mind. So I think that will be quite a short little series. So I'll have a think about those. I don't think Rome 2 or Attila are quite next on the line. Hi, John, Claire and Tabby. Where would you rank yourself, Claire and Tabs, on the Dungeons and Dragons alignment spectrum of lawful, neutral, chaotic, good, neutral, and evil? Ooh, interesting. Interesting. So I think Tabby is neutral good, because she's fundamentally good, but, like, she's not active enough to be lawful or chaotic. She's just, like, sleeping. So I'd say, you know, neutral, therefore suits. So therefore, she's good neutral. Claire is chaotic good, which is, I think, Claire is a good thing as well, but there's a little bit more kind of slight chaos to how she just kind of, you know, goes about everything. So as a result, I think Claire is chaotic good. Ooh, but for myself, that's an interesting one. You see, I could see an argument for so many different ones. Like, I could see an argument for lawful evil. I could see an argument for chaotic good. I'm a bit of a blend. I guess I'm going to settle on... chaotic neutral. I've decided I'm going to be chaotic neutral. I'm just in the middle, but chaotically in the middle. So me and Claire can be chaotic together, and Tabby can just sleep in the background. Will you be seeing Deadpool 2? Possibly, but I actually need to see Deadpool 1 first. So do I actually need to go and see Deadpool 1 or catch it on, like, wherever it is, if it's on, like, Netflix or whatever? I need to see Deadpool 1 first. What's your favourite alcoholic beverage? I do enjoy a cocktail on occasion. So I do enjoy the odd mojito or brambles. Both of them are very, very good cocktails indeed. For a newbie YouTuber, what are some basics to follow when setting up your YouTube page? Make your homepage look nice. So, like, you know, relatively early on, make yourself a channel trailer that just kind of, you know, introduces who you are and shows off some of your best bits, and try and get someone else to watch it. Because, like, just because you think something is really funny, like, to someone who's never seen you before and doesn't know the context of what they're seeing, it might not necessarily be so. And I can totally be guilty of that myself. So get someone else to watch it and see if they think it's good, and then set up those little, like, shelves of content, so when people come to your YouTube page and they scroll down, it looks like there's lots of videos, and if they click on any of them, they're likely to click on your best stuff. So, you know, once you've got your starting few videos set up your homepage so it looks like a good thing. Like, the specific thing you kind of flag, like, should I add related channels or not bother? Like, either is fine, but to be honest, it doesn't really make a big impact. Like, the more important thing is to try and make your channel look busy. Like, if it's a new channel without much on it, you want to try and make it look as busy as possible. So, like, a well set up homepage for the first time people come to your page probably really helps with that. You've just won the lottery, like 500 million. What thing do you buy with that money? Honestly, I'd probably be really boring. Like, I'd buy, like, you know, a nice big house, so I've got, like, you know, dedicated workspace and a garden so I can have a dog, and then, like, large other parts of it, like, I'd probably just, like, you know, sensibly invest so that the returns off it I can live off for the rest of my life without eating into the capital and diddly-diddly-dee. Then no matter what happens in the future, I've still got the money for emergencies or whatever. Like, I do really boring things. Like, I'd buy all the insurance in the world just to be absolutely 100% sure, and I'd hire, like, a wealth management whatever to kind of, you know, so someone who actually knows what they're doing is managing the money rather than me, because I wouldn't know, and I'd probably be really, really prudent with it, so I'd be so boring. I was just thinking there doesn't seem to be that many big games coming out soon. Oh, Vampire's coming out soon. That's probably going to be good. But E3 is just around the corner. What do you think / hope will be announced? I think the big thing I'm watching for is what are Bethesda going to announce? Because obviously it's too soon for Fallout 6. Like, if we were very lucky, maybe that will be the moment they dropped in as, hey, we're going to franchise out Fallout again. Because, you know, typically Fallout games do come in pairs. Fallout 1, then 2 were close together, then there was a gap, and everyone pretends the stuff in the middle doesn't happen. Then Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas came out close together, and then we got Fallout 4, which needs a partner. It needs a flipping partner, which, according to the Fallout 3 New Vegas, should be made by someone else. It's probably not going to happen. Like, if I had to guess, like, it would not surprise me if they dropped Elder Scrolls 6 properly on us. Like, I know there's been, like, you know, a lot of chat that seems to suggest that, like, you know, they're trying to pretend it doesn't really happen and they're just planning it and it's a long way off. It would not surprise me if there's been more work than they've said going on in the background. Like, it's been a long time since Skyrim, and Skyrim has now been ported to literally everything, including virtual reality, including the Switch. Like, it's gotta be time when they're starting to think about something new. But then again, Elder Scrolls Online is irritatingly continuing to get 10 bajillion expansion packs, so they might be focusing on that for the time being, which would be annoying. So I'm kind of curious what Bethesda are going to do, because if it's not Fallout and it's not Elder Scrolls, and we've just had a Wolfenstein recently as well, and we've had a Dishonored pretty damn recently, what are they going to be trying to release at this point? I genuinely don't know. Are you familiar with the YouTuber Folding Ideas? I'm afraid I'm actually not, so I can't tell you what my favourite video is. I had a quick glance at the channel to see if, like, I happened to have seen any of the videos, like, floating around in the past, but just, like, you know, didn't know that that was the channel's name. None of them look familiar, so I do not know. But I will give it a look this evening to see if I actually happen to like it. Have you ever played Psychonauts? No, but I have watched a playthrough of it. So I kind of know a bit about it, but not firsthand. So at some point, like, it would not surprise me if I did a one-off on that. That strikes me as eminently reasonable. Hi, John. What do you think the actual Julius Caesar would think about the Legion in Fallout? That's a hell of a question. I imagine, like, probably he'd be slightly confused. And not just because, like, you know, it's a computer game and the post-apocalypse and whatever, and there's been nuclear weapons and they're all using guns, but specifically because he'd probably be like, why? What's the point of what you're doing? Like, Julius Caesar wielded military power for a very specific series of reasons. He had very specific objectives for what he wanted to do, whether that was because, you know, he needed to win territory because there was glory in that, or plunder in that, or money in that. There was, you know, political and popular support to be won out of military campaigns, having an army that was loyal to him so that he could return to Rome and they might stay loyal to him and keep marching with him, even if he decided to turn on Rome in the future, if he wanted to, you know, fight a civil war against the people that would logically oppose him. You know, he had specific military and political objectives in mind. Well, you know, we can't always say what's going on inside a person's head, but based on his activities and what he did and when he did them, we can reasonably suggest that he very likely had actual military and, beyond them, political and popular and personal goals that he wanted to achieve through his actions. The Legion, however, doesn't so much. Even, like, Caesar himself, who seems to be the only person who's really thinking about this whole thing. Like, everyone else in the Legion is just like, yes, the stupid profligates, we must put them to crosses because they're bastards and they're not us and we hate people who aren't us. Caesar seems aware this is all a bit silly, and he's like, oh yeah, like, what I'm actually doing is I want to take on the NCR because they're the only empire, like, worth taking on. And, like, it's really important that the Colorado is like my Rubicon and stuff like that. But then, like, that doesn't really make sense. Because, like, Caesar crossing the Rubicon, well, one, there wasn't a battle to cross the Rubicon, so that really doesn't make sense. But, like, you know, Caesar crossed the Rubicon and therefore brought his army inside space it wasn't supposed to be in order to march on Rome, because he himself was from Rome and thus wanted to reclaim it. And yes, Caesar's got a backstory that Joshua Graham hints at, but, like, does Caesar really have, like, any particular reason for taking on, like, the NCR, aside from this vague idea that, oh yeah, right now I've just got an army, but, like, by beating an empire, my army will become an empire or something? Like, you control, like, all of Arizona and, like, Utah and, like, you know, loads of other territory. And, like, you know, there's clearly some form of empire going on back there, because the traders we run into in the Legion camp are like, oh yeah, the roads are safe. Like, he took care of the raiders, good and proper. So I actually like trading with them. So, like, I don't really see what Caesar wants to get out of it. All he's really getting is just more land, and I don't really see what he benefits from getting more land. Like, you know, does he want the farmland in order to support a bigger population? That would make sense. Like, if, you know, they said at some point, oh yeah, we want to invade California because California's got this, you know, really, really advanced agriculture, and we can move in and take that over and figure out how to run it, and then we'll have the food that we can have a proper empire. Great. Job done. Or California's got really advanced production facilities. If we can just kind of basically move in and kick out the NCR, and then we can take over all their production facilities, we'll be able to produce better quality weapons and armor, and as a result, we'll be able to, like, you know, have an army that is much more formidable. Great, okay, that vaguely makes sense. I'm not sure what you plan to do with that army at that point, because you've just killed the biggest power in the world, so, like, at that point, what? You just sit on a giant pile of NCR corpses and say, yep, I'm king now. Yay, king of all the corpses. So I'm just not really sure what, you know, the game Caesar really wants to achieve. Like, we know what the NCR wants to achieve. All right, that's very clear. They came in, they want new land because they need resources, and they're growing food, support their army while they're on campaign, and they want the electricity, and they want to hold Hoover Dam, and they want to basically siphon some of the electricity and send it back to the NCR. And they just want, you know, new resources and new people to trade with, and they need to expand their territory because resources are low. It's literally in the opening sequence of New Vegas. Like, you know, they sent their scouts looking for resources, and great, they found a big electricity producing thing. Let's go over and secure the massive electricity producing thing. But Caesar's Legion doesn't really have that. It's a much more really vague, yeah, we'll take them on because then we'll have taken them on, and that'll show them once they've been taken on. Like, you know, the second time, so the first time didn't work out. Yeah, so I'm going to say confusion. Confusion because the game Caesar doesn't seem to actually have, like, you know, an actual real objective in mind beyond this vague idea he has. Following on from the Fallout 3 video, would you ever consider doing similar video essays on the relative merits of each of the Total War games? Oh god! It's actually a really good idea, but no, or maybe, but no, but I don't know, but no, but, like, maybe in the future. Like, give me a break first, I need to emotionally recover from the Fallout 3 video. Are you a fan of Bruce Campbell's work? I haven't seen much of it. Years ago, I watched the original Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, and they're both fun. I wouldn't kind of, you know, say I'm a massive fan, but I will say they're both very fun, entertaining films. I've not seen any of the rest of it. But yeah, what I have seen, I think was good. Hi John, did you support Door Monster's Skyvault Kickstarter? Personally, I didn't, because I really enjoy Door Monster's, like, sketch comedy, but I don't actually remember ever seeing anything they'd done that was, like, you know, long-form sci-fi stuff. So, as a result, I wasn't quite sure, like, what I would be backing there. Like, you know, I feel kind of bad about that. I felt like a dick just kind of saying that because, you know, I like Door Monster. I've given them a shout out in the past. I didn't choose to back that Kickstarter because it's not what I actually like about what they do. Like, their Patreon for their main channel's a different matter because that's supporting the stuff I actually like and the stuff I actually want to see. So that, sure, because that's actually backing the sketch comedy. But the actual Skyvault Kickstarter itself, no, I actually didn't, because, okay, you know what, when it comes out, I will look at a trailer for it. If it looks good, I will actually pay to see that, because I would, you know, I'm happy to support those guys, but I didn't really know enough about the project to want to kind of, you know, back it ahead of time. Are there any games that you've played or seen that you think that would be amazing for YouTuber X? I would dearly, dearly love to see Nerdcubed do a complete series on New Vegas. I think he's played it, but, like, not a huge amount. He actually seemed to get, like, really into Fallout 4, so I'd love to see him actually do a proper complete series on New Vegas. I don't think he actually knows it that well, so I'd love to see Dan kind of, I don't think he's experiencing New Vegas for the first time, but in some ways seeing a lot of stuff potentially for the first time. And I would love to see Chugga Conroy do Skies of Arcadia, because it's a somewhat linear game where the focus is on the narrative and the storytelling, and I think he'd just be perfect to try and actually do that series. So I would love to see Chugga Conroy do Skies of Arcadia, but I don't think he's ever actually mentioned it, so I don't think it necessarily is ever likely to happen. Obligatory tabby pictures? Yes, indeed, Claire. insert the obligatory tabby pictures. Oh, I can't even see them right now because Claire's the one that takes the tabby pictures, but I'm assuming she's adorable. If Tabby was a Bond villain, what would her plan be? Plan A would probably just be to sleep 24 hours a day instead of her current 23 and a half. But if she had to come up with a slightly more proactive plan than that, then probably it would be somehow manipulating the humans into giving her more pouches of wet food per day. Because probably the amount she gets right now she deems as insufficient. Because she does occasionally just turn her nose up at her biscuits in favour of wet food. John, you use a lot of Americanisms when you commentate. Is this deliberate due to your large American audience? It's partly deliberate. I do occasionally just, like, happily go along with American stuff. Occasionally, like, if I have to do, like, put a word in a video title where it's got an English spelling and an American spelling, I will just go with the American spelling on occasion. I'm pretty sure, like, whenever I just kind of write armor in the description of video, I don't include a U, so like sometimes I just Americanize. Aside from a few petty things I hold out on, like aluminium, which is called aluminium, and you're never going to convince me aluminum is a thing. I'd like to state on the record something that any sane person knows: a week runs from Monday to Sunday. Yeah, this caused one hell of an argument on Twitter when we put this forward. Yeah, Claire also believes that a week runs from Monday to Sunday. I, generally believe a week runs from Sunday to Saturday, because the weekends are like bookends. They end the week. They're at each end of the week, so therefore the weekend is Sunday and Saturday. Sunday at the beginning, Saturday at the end, kind of, bookends around the week. And also many, many, many calendars run from Sunday to Saturday. Though admittedly, Google Calendar, the way I'm looking at it right now, does run from Monday to Sunday. Look, can I change that? Can I force that to change? I can't see how to force that to change. Boo. But yeah, many printed calendars seem to run Sunday to Saturday. So yeah, in the end, a massive Twitter poll I did, 70% of people went for Monday to Sunday. But the 30% seemed very outraged by this. John, you're Frankenstein creating a new game cobbled out of other games. What parts do you use from which games? Honestly, this isn't particularly hard. I'll just take, the vast quest and overworld structure of New Vegas, and we'll plug in the crafting and gunplay system from Fallout 4, and we'll set it in a world that's got the biome diversity of Skyrim. Job done. That's all you need. Just do that. John, have you heard of Divinity Original Sin? I haven't. It's been recommended many times. So that's one of those games that lives on the long list, where I think, is that the one where there's co-op? If that's the game I'm thinking of now, then I was thinking at some point Claire and I might do a co-op thing of that, but that's potentially a long way off. Say Hoovis. Okay, Hoovis. I love that little joke. That little joke in Stellaris where there was the Say Hoovis system, and every time I brought it up I just said Hoovis. Yeah, that tickled me just the right way. John, how do you feel about the Athenian Nicias? Honestly, not exactly well. Okay, kind of my speciality. I was always more of a literature than history person. Like, Roman side did a lot more history, Greek side did a lot more literature. Main thing I know about him is just like around the history of the Athenian Syracusan expedition, where I know he was a post. So, history kind of proved him right. So well done, Nicias, for that. That was indeed a good call. John, I know you're always doing an anniversary video around the 25th of May, 27th if I recall correctly to be precise. Can you give us a hint as to what you're planning to cook this year? Actually, I don't know yet. I've got a couple of, vague ideas. I'd like to do something a bit different this year. Something still in the same theme, but maybe something a bit different. So, we'll see. Maybe expect the unexpected. John, does the UK's antitrust laws not apply to vacuum cleaners? I have absolutely no... Wait, hang on. I'm going to reread that in case there's a joke I'm missing here. I don't know. I've no idea. I'm not a legal expert in the field of vacuum cleaners. Sorry. Also, where can I give dissertation length advice for Dragon Age, Elder Scrolls, or Knights of the Old Republic? Well, you'll have to wait for me to begin one of those games, won't you? At which point, I look forward to seeing very long comments in the comments. Which, where else would they go? Are you enjoying the new series of Gotham? Oh, yes. Yes, Gotham season, is it 4? Yeah, Gotham season 4 has finally arrived in the UK. So, yeah, it's fun. Hang on, cover your ears if you haven't seen it yet and you want to. I think the setup is a bit odd. So much has happened between series. At the end of the last series, the Tetch virus has just been released and there's chaos everywhere and everything's gone to hell. It's the new series and everything's fine. Because, apparently Penguin fixed everything by, murdering everyone, and now he's, legalised crime, or, unionised crime, or something. And like, okay, that's fine. That's interesting, but you know, I feel like, you know, we're missing a chapter here. Like, some big stuff happened between the end of season 3 and the beginning of season 4, which is a bit of a problem. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. But you know, it's a decent enough setup for stuff to happen. We've just had, sorry, is her name Sophie or Sophia? The new kind of gangster leader person who's just shown in. She's, you know, she's fun. I think she'll be a fun, interesting new character. Other than that, yeah, it seems solid enough. Kind of, you know, we haven't really kind of got into the big stuff yet. Like, you know, clearly this is going to be the big Scarecrow season, and we've only just kind of really been introduced to the Scarecrow for the first time. So it's a bit early to say, but, you know, it does the thing that I love about Gotham, which is it just kind of moves along at 10 bajillion miles an hour. Like, you know, a single episode will be, here's a character, right, here's this character, oh no, they turned out to be evil, no, they turned out to be good all along, oh, they were evil after all, and now they're dead, and that was just the first 20 minutes. Just like, you know, Riddler's, like, kidnapper, saviour, the Riddlette. Like, you know, she basically just got, like, you know, introduced, changed the status quo of the universe, kidnapped someone, turned out to be evil, turned out to diagnose a major problem with another character, then got murdered inside, like, 10 minutes or something. The series is just zooms on. And then we'll never hear about her again, unless, of course, she turns out to be important or she comes back from the dead. Because everyone comes back from the dead, no one stays dead. In fact, now there's 2 separate mechanisms for bringing people back from the dead in this bloody universe. So no one stays dead. And I love how everyone's just basically just like lampshading that. They're not even bothering to pretend it's not ridiculous anymore. Just Gordon just wanders around going like, yeah, no one stays dead in Gotham. It's fine. They'll all be back. I mean, it's pretty clear, obviously, like, you know, Jerome as the Proto-Joker is going to have a big thing to do, so I'm looking forward to him showing up and doing some fun stuff. So, yeah, like, you know, I think it could be good, but it's a bit early to say, because I think we've only had, 3 or 4 parts so far. John, question about VR. You said you didn't like the trackpad movement in Fallout VR, but were okay with it in Skyrim. When I played Skyrim, I always feel sick using trackpad movement. My question to you is this, is that you're getting used to it, and if so, do you have any tips for it? Honestly, no, and I still don't always feel great. Like, some stuff just straight up doesn't work. Like, going up a spiral staircase in VR is a flipping nightmare. Like, that just does not work no matter what mechanism exists. And generally, if you're building a VR game from scratch, like, you would never have a spiral staircase. It just doesn't work. Like, it still occasionally makes me feel a little bit woozy and not great when I'm going around. Like, what I have to do in Skyrim is, when I'm out in the middle of the open, it's okay, because nothing's moving really close by to me. Like, there's not stuff flying by in the periphery of my vision. And I think that's what makes it work. Like, because Skyrim's a lot more open and empty. There's a lot more kind of, like, big open plains that you can wander over. And that, I think, works in VR with a trackpad, because, like, you know, things are moving around you very slowly. Whereas in Fallout 4 VR, there's a lot more stuff. It's very dense. There's ruins and trees and everything everywhere. So, like, if you're ever moving with a trackpad, like, loads of stuff is just flying past your peripheral vision. And that, I think, is what, like, introduces the sensation of motion sickness. So I think that's why Skyrim is a bit easier. But even in Skyrim, like, whenever I get inside, like, in a dungeon, I mostly have to turn it straight off again, because there's too much stuff too close to me, and then I have to go into teleportation. Hope you're all doing well. Make sure John gets some rest, etc., given I know he works himself too much. I think this is just a message to Claire. Don't tell Claire to make me stop working. I work just the right amount. Claire, don't listen to him. How much input does Claire have when it comes to which games or series you play on the channel? For the one-offs, quite a lot, because Claire's the one that's kind of going through all the upcoming games on Steam and Keymailer and, you know, Origin and whatever, and basically picks out games. So, like, you know, there's a very good chance that, like, new one-offs, especially, like, smaller, lesser-known games, like brand new indie games, Claire was the one that picked them out originally, and she presents me with, like, a short list of stuff that's coming out, and I say, yes, this looks good, let's see if we can get review code for this nice and early so we can make the video ahead of time ready for launch day, and this one I'm not so keen on, here's why, etc, etc, etc. So, Claire has quite a lot to say over the indie one-offs. The series, not so much, because series tends to be stuff I'm already familiar with, or just think that I personally could, like, you know, through whatever combination of I know the franchise, or I think the franchise would work for me, or I think I can roleplay in this franchise really well. So that's kind of a decision I make for myself. So the one-offs, yes, the series, not so much. Why haven't you played Pillars of Eternity? Oh, should have raised this question up earlier when I mentioned Pillars of Eternity 2. Because I played Tyranny, and I thought it was pretty good. But I didn't have a fantastic time with it. Like, I'm not 100% on the real-time with pause old school RPGs. Like, actually, I had a nicer time with the original Fallout, where it was all based on action points and movement points and all of that, where it was all kind of like, real-time but entirely dictated by action points, and not really real-time at all. That's entirely turn-based, John. That's just turn-based, but like, because, like, some real actions have action point. There's no way you can justify this, John. You've just said something that's stupid. Let's just move on. Yeah, I kind of had a more fun time when it's purely old school turn-based stuff or action point based. I had a much more fun time with that. So, like, I struggled to adjust to Tyranny, but I think I adjusted to Fallout 1 a lot, like, more easily and had a much better time with it. So, like, yeah, when I tried to play Pillars of Eternity 2, like, the backer build clearly was not meant for people who hadn't played a lot of the original. So I will look at, like, Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire when it comes out. There's a proper tutorial to it, but I'm just not 100% sure I get the old school RPGs that are in the real time but with pausing. I'm not sure I get it. Oxford comma, yes or no? Totally yes. Oxford commas are great. Is there a foreign language that you want to be able to speak? I probably should, like, speak better French. I have GCSE A star in French, but I should probably speak, like, better French than that, because Claire has French family, so I should probably, like, at some point work on my French. What is your favourite fruit? Ooh, interesting question. Probably just an apple, particularly like a slightly sweeter variant of apple. Like, I quite like Granny Smith apples. They're quite good. What's Claire's favourite fruit? Oh, that's banana. Claire loves bananas. Like, they're her favourite thing in the world. She will just kind of mix bananas. That's not true. None of that is true. Claire, what's your favourite fruit?
I definitely agree with John on the subject of sweet apples, but since he's already picked that answer, I'm going to say raspberries. I really like most type of berries, but really raspberries are my favourite.
And also, do you guys feed Tabby dry food or wet food or both or something else? She gets biscuits in the morning, and then she gets some more biscuits in the evening to last her overnight, but she also gets a pouch of wet food in the evening. She only gets one, however, because she's an indoor cat and she's quite old and very inactive. So, you're supposed to give them, like, I think it says, like, 2 pouches if they're moderately active. Tabby is not a moderately active cat. And we do keep a close eye on her weight, and she's neither gaining or losing weight. She's, like, pretty stable at exactly where she's supposed to be. So her food intake seems to be just about spot on. You've talked about being good at maths in the past. What's your favourite topic in maths? Ooh, that's a bit too academic for my liking. When I say I'm good at maths, it's just, like, if you put forward, like, patterns and data and whatever in front of me, I can generally work my way through it, which I probably, that probably isn't maths. I refer to it as maths as a shorthand. Like, I can do mental arithmetic pretty darn fast. But, like, I more mean it's a mathematical discipline is what I consider, like, data analysis. What I really mean is I'm good at logical stuff, and I'm good at Excel, and I'm good at taking data and, like, skewing it and putting it into pivot tables and figuring out how to put it into a comprehensible format and how to project it forwards and diddly-diddly-dee. Like, I think of all of that as, like, mathematical disciplines, but that's probably just an inaccurate shorthand from the point of view of people who actually study maths. Hey John, when you did that short film for April the 1st regarding video game violence, you used some content from highly requested games. On a scale of 1 to 10, what level of troll are you? In that video, a solid 10 and proud. John, how did your relationship with Creative Assembly start? Well, do you actually mean the relationship as a YouTuber? Well, okay, the first one I played was the very original Rome Total War. That was way back soon after it came out. So that was a long, long time ago. When did I first actually communicate with Creative Assembly? I think it must have been... Did they send me a review code for the original Warhammer? I think they did. I'm pretty sure they did. But at that point, I just basically requested a review code for Warhammer Total War or Total War Warhammer 1 or whatever it was called, because it was a weird way around. I think I just requested code, they provided it. And then I think the first thing that actually happened was they decided to invite me to a Warhammer 2 related event. I think that was the first time I went to actually go and visit them. I may be wrong, but I think that's true. Which was a tiny bit awkward because, like, I liked Creative Assembly. I knew they were going to get back to, some historical Total War, so I totally didn't want to say no. But I hadn't actually played, like, that much Warhammer 1. When I got there, like, at the event, the other people there were massive Warhammer fans, and, like, they were just like, oh yeah, when's this particular obscure unit from the Legions of Chaos going to be entering this DLC? It's like, I haven't touched any of the DLC for Warhammer 1. Like, I played one campaign as the Imperials, and I didn't finish that campaign because I lost the save file, which is why my Warhammer 1 playthrough ends with the slightly ridiculous reenactment on the table thing. I did 10 parts of a series, then a slightly jokey ending, and then I played like a little bit more on and off, but I didn't play that much. And I was in the room with people who were massive fans of the game, and massive fans, and I just kind of had to, smile and nod, just smile and nod. I played a lot more Warhammer 2 than Warhammer 1, though. I really enjoyed Warhammer 2. I thought that was pretty darn cool. So, at that point, they sent me stuff early. But, I think at the point where we got involved with the Thrones of Britannia stuff, that's where we really started getting in with them. Because, they gave us some really early access to some of Thrones of Britannia, which is really cool. And hopefully, the same thing can happen again with the future Total War games. Because, I think me and them get on pretty well right now. So, That's where we are. Though I know for a fact some people have mentioned in passing actually people at Creative Assembly have mentioned that they are aware, and some of them have seen some of the Rome and Medieval 2 playthroughs. So they know that I'm more about the old kind of classic historical Total Wars than the new ones. So they do know that. So definitely some people there have seen some of the series, but I don't know exactly who and exactly how much. If your life was a video game, what achievements do you think you'd have achieved so far? Oh, just the depressing ones. Like, how you get, just kind of fake achievements for reaching level 10, reaching level 20? Like, presumably there's, those ones in real life would be like, oh, you've reached age 20, and now you've reached age 30, and I'd have the age 31. And that's depressing. That's just incredibly depressing. So yeah, I just have the ones that celebrate, in inverted commas, you reaching a particular level or year in real life. This is a bit of an odd question because I think it's been typed wrong, and I'm going to try and figure out what the actual question is. What, if any, superhero movies do you think exist in the MCU? Is the question. Now, I'm going to work into the assumption that's supposed to be, what superhero movies do you think should exist in the MCU? I'm going to work into the assumption that that's what's going on, because I'm not sure. I would not mind them trying to get in Squirrel Girl. Just I just kind of would like to see how they try and do that. If it's, feasible, I wouldn't mind them just kind of, somehow acquiring the rights to Miracle Man and having Miracle Man be a big villain, kind of a big crossover world-ending style event that could follow up Thanos. That could be the next one after we're done with Thanos in the next, assuming we are done with Thanos in the next Avengers film, I don't know. It might be fun to kind of, bring in the whole Miracle Man and a ludicrously powerful superhero who can just tear apart reality or whatever. That might be kind of fun. Yeah, that sort of thing might be interesting. I mean, no offense, I think the MCU is doing a great job already. So, just carry on, guys. Carry on. John, for your next Skyrim series, I think you should do something a bit special. I'm going to be honest, I don't foresee there being another Skyrim series. If there is, it's not going to be for a long, long, long time. Honestly, I think at this point, the next time we do, modern, in inverted commas, Elder Scrolls, it's probably going to be when Elder Scrolls 6 comes out. We might do a long series of Morrowind or Oblivion between now and then. I cannot foresee another Skyrim series. I feel like I've done a pretty comprehensive job with Skyrim, to be honest. The next question is someone actually providing an old blog post, which was a long little Fallout 3 critique. It wasn't one of the ones I read ahead of making the actual script for my video, but from having just quickly skim-read it, many of the points that are brought up will be addressed and discussed in the video, yes. John, what did you do your dissertation on? Oh, nice easy one there. I did an optional dissertation where the deal was basically it got given a mark and it would basically replace whatever your lowest ranking paper was in the event that its score was higher than any of your other papers. So it was a bit of just a safety fallback thing. And that was on the relationship between old comedy, i.e. like Aristophanic comedy, and new comedy, i.e. like the comedy of Menander, and the relationship between the two, and elements that survived and elements that didn't, and kind of, what we can try and piece together out of fragments of middle comedy, about the middle ground, and how comedy evolved in the ancient world over time. I don't know if I've still got a copy of it somewhere. Like, I know where there used to be one, which is, I had a copy on an old laptop that just died. Like, it died a horrendous violent death where its hard drive just kind of one day just broke and shredded itself. And, like, I took it to a computer store and there's like, there is no way we can save any data off this thing. It is just impossible. So, I don't know if there's still a copy of it. I must have a printed off version somewhere, like in an old box that's in a cupboard, but I've no idea where. John, you've introduced me to lots of great YouTubers, most recently Up Is Not Jump, for which thank you. How do you find these people, especially when organic visibility for small channels is virtually impossible? Extremely good question. Up Is Not Jump was a bit of a lucky one, because the thing is, I think what you need to get visibility is you need to have, like, just one big hit video that can then become the gateway video that stays visible, that gets people's attention. And I know that's like, really unhelpful advice. Like, oh, how do you grow for your small channel? Oh, well, just make one video that gets 10 million views. Which I know is not helpful, but like, so many of the YouTubers I know, you can sort of trace where they started to take off back to a particular video that went a bit viral for whatever reason. So Up Is Not Jump did the X is a Nightmare series that got a bit of attention from the devs of the games in question and got loads of views and was shared around a lot. And, back in the day, NerdCubed made a couple of things, like, he kind of got in on the doing jokey videos about the farm simulators when that was relatively early on, and he did some of the really good, 13 Ways to Die videos that were kind of partly, I think they were shared on Machinima originally, and that got a load of views, and there was a lot of kind of growth that came out of them, for example. And for us, like, it was when the Fallout Kill Everything videos went big that we got our initial audience that we were able to build on from there. So, like, I think it's very hard to just slowly organically grow, and it's very hard for me to find these people. Very often, like, if a channel wants to get somewhere, in the end it just needs to execute like at least one video that's a really big labour of love that has a chance of going a bit viral, and that could potentially be a launching off point on which to build. It can be the foundation. And I know that's not helpful, but it's the best that I've got. Like, YouTube is not necessarily a young channel friendly environment, and I can't change that. I can just do what I can to try and give some love out to some small channels that I happen to be aware of. I'm going to paraphrase this question, so a little bit on the long side. It's basically a question after the donations, the super chat donations in the streams, and specifically the question of like how we feel about the larger sums, where very often several large sums come from the same group of people, potentially like across multiple weeks. It's something that constantly surprises us. Like, it's never something we get used to, and it's never something we expect. And it always makes us feel a little bit kind of, because Claire and I are both like not quite sure how to do with it, because like, absolutely, we take the view of, people can do what they want with their own money. Like, we own a stupidly large number of board games that we've spent, hundreds of pounds on over the years. So we've got shelves and shelves of expensive Euro board games, and someone would look at that and think, that's ridiculous, that's such a waste of money, why would you spend money on that? And some people have collections of plates up on their walls, and plenty of people look at that and think, that's so ridiculous, how can you spend money on that, how would you waste that much money on that sort of stuff? Like, the thing is, you're spending on just about everything but the basics you need to survive. Someone's going to look at one aspect of your spending, no matter how sensible it seems to you, and you're going to be able to find someone in the world who looks at it and says, that's so ridiculous, how can you waste money on that? So we try not to, we don't judge or anything, and we try not to, presuppose on, the motivations or where people come from or anything. Because, everyone chooses to spend money in a way that someone else would find objectionable. So, we're very grateful. We're very grateful to the generosity of those individuals. But, I feel it would be wrong of us if we actually kind of started, actually prying into that person's life in any way. If we, like, you know, started saying, hey, you know, are you sure, you know, are you financially secure? Is this safe to, like, you know, I really hope that people who donate are doing so sensibly, you know, financially responsibly and diddly-diddly-dee. Like, you know, these are people who are financially secure. I don't know. These might be people who have, you know, high-powered jobs in finance and just have money to burn, and when they're not doing this, you know, they go to a champagne bar and spend several £100s on a single bottle of champagne that they drink with their friends. I don't know who these people are in the real world. And I think it wouldn't be, you know, polite or right for us to kind of, you know, try and presuppose or judge or, like, inquire after them. For the most part, like, it is difficult because I really, you know, I'd feel terrible if one day we found out that someone was in financial difficulty as a result of, you know, a donation that they've made. I really hope that's not the case, but there's only so much we can really do, to be honest. I don't know what else we can do, because this is a mechanism that's being handled by and is, you know, integrated into YouTube, so we don't have a way of, like, modifying it to, like, you know, adding a gate saying, you know, before you donate, are you 100% sure you want to and that it's, you know, financially responsible for you to do so, and diddly-diddly-dee. So, yeah, it's something that, you know, we do feel sometimes conflicted about, because we can't be 100% certain what the financial state of the people who are donating actually is. But I don't know what we can do about it. So we just kind of, you know, we stick with being very, very grateful. We stick with being very, very grateful indeed. And, you know, I hope and always try and stress that, you know, it's great that people do that, but, you know, people shouldn't, you know, we definitely don't expect them to. We definitely never encourage anyone to make the big ticket donations. That's a choice people make, and we can't really stop them making that choice. You know, you can't tell someone what to do with their money. So, you know, it is a complicated issue we have put a lot of thought into, but there's not an easy answer to it. John, I just saw your Geek Pride Day video from 2013. Any chance of a 2018 version? No. I like that just being an Easter egg right at the beginning of the channel for people to find if they want to. Like, I prefer that just being an Easter egg. Like, therefore, we never reference it again. So that's why there's no kind of remixed version. I'm going to paraphrase this question again. It's about Stellaris Apocalypse, and yeah, in 2.0 onwards, the changes that have been made and the changes to game pacing. Specifically, the question boiling down to, do you think the game is too slow now as a result of the combination of the claim system and relatively slow movement around the galaxy? Personally, I don't think so. I think the slow movement around the galaxy works quite nicely because it encourages you to have no choice but to basically hunker down and set up defensive outposts with your kind of star bases, because you won't necessarily be able to guarantee that you're 100% safe on your borders because your fleet can't be everywhere at once. So as a result, you do actually have to have your fleet spread out rather than just kind of, you know, for me, it completely eliminated the doom stack problem. Like, there is no doom stacking for me anymore whatsoever. Now, you know, I keep one fleet close by to one territory just in case they decide to attack me, and another smaller fleet close by to a smaller one just to make sure they don't want to attack me, and if they do, there's no way they're getting into my empire or causing any trouble with me whatsoever. Like, I spread my fleets out, and it feels a lot more realistic, because I'm no longer just, like, you know, basically just saying, yep, all my fleets now live in a massive Doomborn. I've got literally my entire fleet in just one spot that sits in the middle of my empire until it's needed somewhere, then it just warps over there and job done. So I think it works a lot better now. Now, I agree that there are issues with progression on occasion. I think, like, the claim system, you get around by, you know, basically, I think it's kind of supposed to be slow. Because, of course, there's things like vassalization and the tributary status. So if you don't want to, or you can't afford the influence to take over an entire empire, then you can simply say, okay, become my vassal. If they say no, then if you just beat them in a total war, then they're forced to become your vassal, and then you can choose to later integrate them or not if you choose, or turn them into a tributary if that's what you want to do. Or, of course, you could do the ideological war to convert them to your ideology if you'd rather absorb them into your federation later. So all of those are options that don't involve the claim system whatsoever. The claim system is just if you want to do the traditional, right, I'm going to eat some territory now. And then, of course, if you also don't like that, you could also be like a fanatical purifier, because they can basically just walk in and take whatever the hell they feel like it and don't bother observing the niceties of the claim system. So there's plenty of ways around it. I think there's plenty of ways around it if you don't like that system, because I think the claim system isn't supposed to be for just eating as much territory as you want. The claim system is for carving out chunks of tactically, strategically useful territory, or systems that you particularly want to get hold of because, you know, they've got a particular resource, or they're really, really rich in terms of minerals, or they're on a particular choke point and you want to actually fortify that choke point to create a more sensible and easy to guard border, or if you want to get hold of a particular, you know, a wormhole, or a gateway, or a ruined megastructure. Because especially if you've got the DLC, there's a load of stuff just dotted around the galaxy now. So there's a lot more stuff that you might want to try and strategically grab, especially, yeah, some of the strategic resources together with things like the ruined megastructures. So I'd say it works for me. It works for me. Plus, of course, in the late game, you can start building your own gateways. And once you start building your own gateways, then you can basically just, well, no offense, like, at that point, movement is fast around the galaxy than it's literally ever been before in Stellaris. So at that point, you can literally just instantaneously travel, like, in seconds, from one side of the galaxy to the other. And you never used to be able to do that in Stellaris. Well, technically, if you use the old wormhole system, I guess you could. But, like, you know, the wormholes are gone. Alright, I don't think they worked particularly well, the wormhole system and the wormhole stations. I'm not sure they ever worked desperately well. So, yeah, in all fairness, I think it works. I think it works pretty nicely. Also, there's a lore question related to, yeah, when you have to spend influence to claim a system, why do you have to spend the influence? Who are you influencing? You're influencing your own people or your own political system. Because you need to actually persuade people that, like, you have a worthy claim or something. I think, like, the idea is supposed to be, like, if you went around just basically grabbing anything, then people would just be like, hang on, we're the bad guys, we're just going around smashing and grabbing, and people wouldn't stand for it. There'd be, like, you know, unrest in the streets because we're blatantly being bastards. Which is why, of course, fanatical purifiers and hive minds are allowed to get away with it because, like, you know, they wouldn't have an objection to that sort of behaviour. Like, I think the influence is basically saying, hey, remember that system that we don't own that someone else has settled on? Well, we've got a legitimate right to it for this reason, and it's just persuading people that's the right thing to do, so that when you do invade it, everyone inside your empire is cool with it, and thus there's not, like, mass protests. Now, I agree, there could be a better way of doing that. Like, for example, you could actually, like, say, force grab something, but that would lead to, say, rising unrest on your own systems, because people are unhappy with the fact that you're not actually bothering to make a case for why you deserve something. Because, like, you know, if you look in the real world, this generally is what happens. Like, you know, before a country attacks another country, they've got to make the case they've got a reasonable reason. You know, we're attacking this country because they, you know, they've done something bad. We're attacking this country because they possess a weapon that they could hit us with. We're attacking this country because they've broken the rules of war and we've got to protect their people from their own governments. So given that's the case, it kind of feels vaguely appropriate, that system. I agree it's a little bit clumsy, and I think it could do with being worked on, but then, you know, this is very soon after a big change occurred to the way it works. I think they'll make some changes yet. Also, a good reminder that, yeah, this actual year is going to be the 5-year anniversary special, so we should definitely do something extra special for that. Ooh. And an update on, yeah, Claire's Sims Corner. Honestly, Claire's Sims Corner is more of, like, a vague idea than a thing that's actually planned. I don't know what we do with that at some point. I think maybe we started off with a live stream where I'm still there, but I'm in the background, so I'm the one in the chat and the super chat, and Claire's actually playing The Sims, so I'm still there. Or it's a co-op video. So we'll see. There's no actual timescale in mind for that. Going along with the historical theme in Thrones of Britannia, have you watched The Last Kingdom on Netflix? I have not, but I've heard good things, so next time I want to begin a new Netflix show, I might well give the pilot a go. With Skyrim concluded, how about a dramatic reading by you and Claire of excerpts from The Lusty Argonian Maid? You know what, I have actually considered this. I've genuinely considered doing, like, just as a one-off video, just as, like, you know, for a bit of fun, just reading the books of Skyrim and drawing attention to the ones I think are the most interesting. Honestly, it could actually be a thing. I've genuinely considered it. John, any idea on the next big AAA release we could possibly see on the channel? Vampire and Jurassic World Evolution are both coming out pretty soon. I wouldn't bet against either of them. John, have you watched any Quentin Tarantino movies? I have. Not all of them, but I have seen a few. Personally, I really like Kill Bill. I actually like both the Kill Bills, which doesn't seem to be the most popular opinion in the world. Some people seem to think they're a bit overrated, but I personally really enjoy the Kill Bill films. I think they're really cool. So I've actually watched and rewatched them a few times, actually. If asked, would you appear on other podcasts? Well, I have appeared on other podcasts in the past, such as Critical's The Official Podcast. I have no idea who that is, I'm afraid. But enough people email me and ask, I do just kind of, consider everything first. So I'd need to know, who he was and, what he's doing and whatever. Because I've no idea what that is, I'm afraid. So, but, if I get asked, I always consider it. John, with the news about the new royal baby and you being British and everything, what are your thoughts on the monarchy? I'm ambivalent, to be honest. I'm definitely not a monarchist insofar as I don't, like the royal family actively in any way. But, I'm definitely not also a Republican who believes they need to be abolished. On a balance of probabilities, I believe they probably pay for themselves in, tourism and soft power that they represent. They're probably useful in that regard. So, I don't think they've really got a place in modern society, specifically. But, as a tourist trap and as a soft power thing we can send around the world, assuming they behave and, behave themselves, yeah, I'm sure, why not? Let them carry on. John, do you ever watch speedruns of games you like? Yes, I love speedrunning. Whenever, Awesome Games Does Quick comes on, I do catch quite a bit of that. Though, disappointingly, some of my my favourite games make very bad speedruns. Pretty much all Bethesda speedruns are really boring because they're basically just massively glitchy. It's just people figuring out, okay, how do we fling ourselves out of bounds? Great, we flung ourselves out of bounds, and now we're a million miles over the map and falling, and now we need to abuse quick saving and quick loading in order to fling ourselves at 10 million miles in that direction. And then in Skyrim, I need to park my horse sideways on a rock, and then if I quick load as I get off it, I'll be flung a million miles in that direction. It's just not interesting. So I kind of wish there was a better glitchless category in all Bethesda games, but every time you see Bethesda games at Awesome Games or Summer Games Done Quick, it's always the glitched category, and thus I find it really uninteresting, which is a real shame. Because, yeah, I just would prefer it if it wasn't. If you give me a choice between watching, say, the glitched versus unglitched Ocarina of Time run, I'll always go for the unglitched version. Because the glitched version is just, really convoluted setup followed by, and now we've teleported from Goma straight to Ganon's Tower. Yay! That's good. I'm glad we did all of that for no unexplained reason. Now we just kind of step forward, step back, and jump, skip, and open the pause menu, and then flick it round, and this is frame perfect. Now I've pushed the Ocarina button, and now we've beaten the game. Yay! Yeah, I find that very boring. So it's kind of a shame some of my favourite games actually make for quite poor speedruns. John, have you played the new God of War yet? Yes. I think it's a really solid game. I think it's a good PS4 exclusive. It's gorgeous. The areas are cool. The puzzles are interesting. They're not exactly massively intricate, but they work very nicely. I like the feel of the axe and the tossing and the recalling of the axe. Lots of it works very well. I personally wasn't so into the story because I'm not 100% keen on because it's a very linear story, so you don't actually get to make choices. Basically, you're just kind of going along, and whatever the story says is the relationship between Kratos and Atreus is just, you just have to do that. You don't get a choice in what to say or anything. And I'm not thrilled at the relationship between Kratos and Atreus. I get that obviously, Kratos and the God of War and whatever is not going to be a great dad, but I find it a bit uncomfortable. It's Atreus is just on the ground and cannibals jumped on top of him and, has tried to eat his face off and, he's upset 'cause he's a 10-year-old child and he's crying and Kratos says, yeah, stop crying, just, man up, deal with it, just, we need to get on with this, stop crying, stop being weak, your emotions are weakness. And then later, he's clearly really mentally struggling in the same room, he's been told to go and lower a chain to help Kratos climb up and he just kind of just keeps just pausing because he's so horrified by what's just happened. He's just suffered a very, really nasty shock, a really bad trauma. And Kratos is just oh, well, if you don't hurry up and do it, then, you've just proved you're so weak, we'll have to go back home. It's wow. That's, I felt really uncomfortable in that scene because what's going on is basically psychological abuse of a child. You're basically telling a child that's just suffered a really nasty psychological shock to get on with it. Emotions are bad. What you need to do now is suppress your emotions, suppress them right down. And that's really unhealthy, and I'm not comfortable with it. And, I get he's not supposed to be a good father, and there's going to be an arc where he's going to be a better father. But, I play games because I want to feel certain emotions. There's a reason I don't play horror games. It's because I don't like being scared by a game. And I don't like the emotion of feeling deeply uncomfortable with a game, especially uncomfortable with a character I'm playing as. So I didn't really enjoy parts of the story for that reason, because, while I get that it makes sense in character and in context, I didn't, I felt really uncomfortable actually having to be the person who actually, presses the button to make Kratos say things like that, because it makes, me as a player complicit in... I wasn't comfortable with that, and I appreciate that's a very small part of the game, and, plenty of the plot is really cool, and, there's some really beautiful environments and really cool landscapes and really cool puzzles, and the combat I find really satisfying. It's a small part of it, but I couldn't get into the game because I don't find the characters I'm playing as sympathetic because of that sort of behaviour. So, yeah, it's a mixed bag for me. I'm going to make a couple of videos, and I'm not going to stress that bit at all. I'm going to kind of, focus on the positives, because I do think overall it's a really, really good game. And I'm going to talk about the bits I really like. But yeah, for me, I don't think it's going to be like a full series. It's just going to be a little mini-series focusing on the bits that I did like, and not really kind of going into the other bits in great detail, because, yeah, I'm not really 100% on the plot there. I struggle to get into the plot for that reason. I'm interested in your thoughts on the Vive Pro and if it's worth the money. It's definitely just for, VR enthusiasts or people who literally go into VR because they're making videos because they're YouTubers or whatever. I think a casual person who's just a casual person who wants to just enjoy some cool VR tech, is perfectly fine with the old Vive or, indeed the Oculus or whatever. It's a small upgrade. It's noticeable when you're, reading text in VR or whatever, but it's a really small improvement, really. Your brain probably won't even be able to tell the difference after you've been inside the helmet for 5 minutes. So, it's nice. Is it worth the upgrade? I'd say for someone who's just a casual VR player, probably not. If you're a really big VR enthusiast, yes, probably. But it's really only for the enthusiasts. I was wondering what you think about the comments on some of your XCOM videos where people seem to in some way lament you're not failing. Yeah, I found that hilarious, which is at the beginning of the XCOM series, everyone's just like, John, you're not doing things properly. Here's a series of things you must do right now. Here's things you must do, otherwise you're not playing the game right. Then the exact same people, 16 parts later, oh, now John's too powerful and I'm not enjoying this series anymore because there's no real proper threat anymore. John's too good. Then you shouldn't have told me, alright? And I did actually go back and check. It's very often the exact same people. The same people who, at the beginning, were just here's 20 things you need to do. I read them and I thought, okay, that's useful advice. And I did some of them. And as a result, I went through without, any massive catastrophes. Though there were some real close calls, the graveyard fight when the Cyberdisc showed up for the first time. That almost went very, very wrong indeed. And all of a sudden, the same people are like, oh no, now I don't enjoy it for a different reason. Basically, what I've learned from the XCOM series is I need to actually pay less attention to the comments if the comments are giving me very specific advice. Because if it's a game I don't know, then being told detailed information about how to be good at it too early on means, it makes the series less enjoyable. So, if I go forward into another big, complicated game I don't know as well, say Crusader Kings 2, I will read advice that's more general, but very specific advice I'll actually try and ignore because it basically just reduces my enjoyment of the game and it reduces other people's enjoyment of the game. Because though people think, oh no, I can't stand to watch this because John doesn't know what he's doing, but actually the fact that some things have to go wrong, you have to make mistakes, and you have to learn from the mistakes and trying to recover from mistakes, that's part of what makes a good series a good series. So yeah, what I've actually really learnt from XCOM is basically sometimes advice in the comments is not as useful as you might think it is, because actually I think it might actually make the series slightly worse. As it's exam time, any tips on how to get essays done with as little hassle as possible? Like I was saying earlier, I think have plans. One of the ways I like preparing for exam and specifically essay exams is to basically look at the paper, figure out what are the likely questions to come up and actually plan them out and then try and recreate them if good matches do actually show up. Though of course, be prepared for anything. Obviously have good general knowledge, so if the questions, if there's really obscure weird questions, you can answer them. But preparing for specific essays and planning them out, assuming you've got good enough visual memory to recall what your essay plans look like and thus fill in the gaps once you've actually got them down on a rough sheet of working paper, could potentially work. John, any chance of a Banjo-Tooie video? Ooh, maybe. I do own Rare Replay and it is on there, so that's entirely feasible, yes. Have you ever watched any of the Aussie YouTuber Mooselk's Fortnite videos? No, honestly, I watch very little Fortnite in terms of like videos or live streams because I enjoy like playing it, but I'm a really casual player. So like, I don't really enjoy watching high-level Fortnite playing. I know that's kind of bad because like that would be a good way to learn. But like, the reason I don't like doing it so much is because very often, especially PC players, it's very... Just because I find the building isn't particularly pleasant to watch from the perspective of the person doing it. Because, yeah, you know, you're flipping around, it's like, whoa, 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 then ramp, then jump, then floor, then jump, then whoa, 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 then ramp, jump, floor, 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 jump, run, now forward, peek up, fire, back down, now build some more walls, because the walls have been shot, and I don't find that particularly good as a spectator sport, personally. So, I don't watch many Fortnite videos. If anything, I think actually, like, if I was to want to watch, you know, like a Battle Royale game, where if I wanted to watch a really skilled Battle Royale player, I'd probably actually watch PlayerUnknown's, even though I personally don't like playing it as much as Fortnite. I think it's a better spectator sport, because I think the building makes it a little bit hyperactive for me in terms of watching other people play it. Given Skyrim Together, a multiplayer Skyrim mod, is in its final stages of localization and looks to be releasing imminently, do you think you have potential for a collab series of some kind? That's kind of fun and interesting. Yeah, that's not beyond the realms of possibility. Also, my immediate thought is, would that theoretically work alongside Skyrim VR? Because Skyrim VR does actually work with old Skyrim save files and most Skyrim mods. I wonder if you could actually, yeah, have a co-op VR Skyrim adventure. Ooh, worth looking into. Have you literally noticed how literally often you literally use the word literally? I literally have, you know. Yeah, sorry, it's one of those words that just kind of drop into sentences even if it probably shouldn't be there. What's your opinions on Mr. Blobby and various other terrifying British children's TV characters? Well, the particularly terrifying thing about Mr. Blobby is he wasn't a children's TV character. He was a side character on Noel's house party, meaning he was just there in primetime Saturday night entertainment slot. There was just this show that basically existed in the same universe as, like, you know, Family Fortunes or stuff like that. And, you know, occasionally, for no well-explained reason, a giant blobby creature would just burst through the door and start trashing the place. It wasn't even for children, it was just there. They just thought, hey, would this game show be improved by a bloke in a giant pink and yellow polka dot outfit coming in and just trashing the place and just occasionally trying to communicate like he's a Pokemon called Mr. Blobby, because all he could say was blobby, blobby, blobby. The answer was yes, it massively improved things. So, yeah, there's I never found Blobby terrifying. He was just slightly weird and surreal. John, how often do you make the perfect cup of tea, to refer to the old video? Actually, very rarely. I've cut down my tea intake, which I know sounds weird for a British person, but because I like drinking sugar in my tea, I figured out, yeah, I was actually having quite a lot of sugar. So either I needed to cut down the sugar, which I didn't enjoy, because then I just didn't enjoy the tea, or I needed to cut down on the tea. So I cut down on the tea, so now I have 1 cup of tea first thing in the morning with breakfast, and that's it. I drink no other tea during the day. Instead, I just drink a lot more water, and I feel a lot better for it. Stay hydrated, people. Being hydrated is good. Editing Claire, how smug were you that you were the one that got Sonic Powers in XCOM? She was very smug, but I'll let her be smug in her own words for a minute.
So smug. Oh my god, it was so great. I was working while John was recording that specific video, and so I heard his reaction through the wall, and by the time he came out of recording, I was able to make a lot of jokes about how I knew that there was something special about me and he wasn't gifted, and I just keep bringing it up every so often. It's delightful.
John, what's your favourite genre of games? Oh, that's a really hard one. Like, is action RPG a genre, or is that a blend of genres? Because I do like them, but I also like roguelikes, and I like survival games, and I love puzzle games on occasion. I don't think I've got, like, one thing I like above anything else, but if you're allowed to just, like, you know, accept action RPGs, I often find that's a nice little, you know, nice thing that just sits in the middle and absorbs little features that I like from every different other genre. Hi, John and Claire. Most people say they can't work with their significant other, but you guys seem to do it really well, apart from some of the things that John has done during the Civ streams. Fair enough. What would you say is the secret to working together so well? I don't know, really. I worked alone. It was just me working on this for some time before we brought Claire in. So maybe it's the fact that we didn't really start working together. Like, I kind of got used to how I wanted to work, and then Claire came in, and maybe it's the fact that we don't specifically work on the same thing at the same time. Technically, we're both working independently. Like, right now Claire is, I assume, she might just be, just messing around on Twitter or whatever. I hope she's working. Claire is in a different room with a whole bunch of video files that I've given her, probably like something for Thrones of Britannia, say, or Stellaris or XCOM or whatever, and she's editing those. So I guess we work well together because actually for the most part we're independently working separately from each other. So that seems probably about right. Also, any plans to make a Don't Starve miniseries? Probably not. It struck me as a good one-off. I'm not sure it necessarily is going to come back. Though, if it were to come back, it would be Don't Starve together as a co-op miniseries. Hey John, are you happy? It's a very general question. It's a very personal question too. I've no objection to answering though, because yeah, actually, where I am now in terms of being a YouTuber and working for myself and what I do and getting to work, with games and working with Claire and having the relationships I have with other people in the gaming industry, yeah, my life's in a good place right now. I am pretty happy. I know everyone's got, good and bad bits in their life, but this for me is one of the good bits. So yes, I am happy. In one of the old Podcast episodes, Matt said that MATM was basically a Fallout channel, which you objected to. Do you think this comment influenced the direction your channel has taken since then? Not really. I think there was always, aside from the period directly after, Fallout 4 came out, previously it was only ever, one video of Fallout a week, and since then it's been one video of Fallout a week, and straight after Fallout 4 came out, obviously, we did a lot more than that, but, that's because there was a brand new Fallout game. So, as a result, I don't think it's really ever changed that much. What's changed is the proportion of videos that are Fallout is a lot lower. Because back in the old days, we might have done, there might have been a Fallout video on Sunday, then there might have been one thing on a Saturday, there might have been, the old Mass Effect No Gun series, and then one other video on a Wednesday that was a one-off, and it might have been just those 3 videos. So back then, Fallout was a third of all the videos. Now, there's still only one Fallout video on a Sunday, but now there's a whole bunch of other videos in series floating around, so it feels like there's less Fallout. There's probably pretty much about the same Fallout as there ever was historically, apart from, the odd moment just after a new Fallout game came out where there's a lot more. And, whenever Fallout 5 or if there's a spin-off Fallout comes out, then there'll be a lot more of that floating around as well. But broadly, I don't think it changed anything. I always knew we weren't a Fallout channel. Fallout gave us our launching off point, and lots of people like it, so we're always going to do some Fallout on the channel. But, there was always a plan to do other stuff, and there always was other stuff. It's just, now there's more videos, which gives us a chance to do more other things. I have a question for Tabby. Who's a good girl? Who's a good girl? She is. She's the best girl. Tea leaves or tea bag? I'm a pleb. I just have a tea bag. A nice PG Tips pyramid bag, to be precise. Who do you like more, Master Neloth or Benno? Oh, don't make me choose. No, I refuse to choose and you can't make me. Will you be playing XCOM 2 after your Series of Enemy Unknown? No, at some point yes, but not immediately afterwards. I do like spacing them out a little bit. Hey John, I wanted to know, where is it that you acquire your linen shirts? Marks and Spencer's. I acquire them at Marks and Spencer's when they're available, because there's a lovely little line of not even that expensive, just basically Marks and Spencer's, non-branded, their own brand, whatever, just white linen short sleeve shirts. They're lovely. That's where they come from. More Battletech, good sir? Honestly, I think one-off was fine, because what I learnt from the comments was the people who are fans of, say, the Battletech board game, and thus know how it all fits together, were very infuriated by the fact that I didn't understand all the mechanics. So it's one of those games where the fan base is not really open to new people learning the game, so I think we'll just quietly leave that one be. Really looking forward to the Fallout 3 video. How many pages was it? It wasn't pages because it was in a single notepad document. But yeah, 22,000 words, give or take. I demand American Claire. Go on, Claire. Give us your best possible American accent.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm American Claire, and I am dreadful at this here exercise. I want to apologize to America for even trying it. Please don't make me do it again.
What do you think it would take to get the channel to 3 or even 4 videos per day? Nothing's going to get it there. We'd have to hire new people, and we'd need a whole new other person on board. At that point, it wouldn't be John anymore. It would have to be John and someone else. Honestly, what we do right now is already right on the threshold of what we can keep up with, even with a full-time employee in the form of Claire, helping with the editing. I struggle to keep up with what we've already got, especially it really shows when we do videos like the Fallout 3 video. The moment I want to do anything that's a bit more intensive, that's a really special video, and it's important to do those videos, because remember I was saying earlier about how, like, you know, if you're a younger, smaller channel, like, you need those big videos that might go viral. Those videos require huge amounts of work. Like, there's a reason why Up Is Not Jump is doing really well right now, which is the only stuff he's putting out is really, really high effort, highly edited stuff, where as a result, like, it only comes out once every few weeks or something. But it's worked really well for him because every single one of his videos is really, really great and high effort. And sometimes I think we get bogged down doing so many videos that are, you know, they're fine. I think they're good. I think the one-offs are, like, as good as they've ever been. And I think some of the series are really good. But they're not going to grow the channel massively. Like, if we want the channel to, like, you know, have some really big, good quality growth and get ourselves, you know, out of the low 100,000s into the high 100,000s, or have any chance of ever actually reaching, like, say, 1 million subscribers and reaching, like, the top tier of YouTubers in that regard, then I need to do more videos like the Fallout 3 video, where it's actually going to be, like, you know, a video that might actually get some attention and be spread around a little bit. But those videos are so time consuming that when we try and do one, all of a sudden we start falling behind with all the other videos. So I think, like, if anything, the Fallout 3 video has made me think, okay, actually, maybe we shouldn't be aiming for 2 videos literally every day. Maybe, like, you know, 2 videos on days where it's a series is fine, but actually, if it's a good, solid, decent length, heavily edited one-off video, maybe 1 video a day is fine. And we aim for more, like, you know, 11 videos a week rather than 13 videos a week. But as a result of that, you get more really big, awesome, special stuff, like the Fallout 3 video. Like, say, things more like Fallout New Vegas Don't Starve, which was really, really cool video. We could try doing something like that again. We could do, like, you know, one-off feature-length challenge runs. Really cool stuff like that. So I think that's an interesting trade-off I'm going to be experimenting with. And I think, yeah, the only way we'd ever get more videos than what we have out right now is by hiring more people, and I don't know who I'd hire. Like, you know, I'd happily hire, like, you know, someone like, say, Matt, or, you know, better Matt, Up Is Not Jump, or Mataphobia, to come on board to produce videos, but neither of them want to. They're off doing their own things. That's the unfortunate thing about talented people I'd like to work with. They're sufficiently talented that they want to do their own things instead. So, yeah, that's not going to work out, unfortunately. John, what would you do if there was no internet for a week? Cry. Just cry. I honestly don't know. Like, if, you know, if, like, the internet just went down for a week because they had to turn off that giant modem that the American government's got hidden under Area 51, and thus everyone's internet was just down, there was nothing that could be done about it. Like, you know, I couldn't just use, you know, going somewhere else and use the internet, or I couldn't just use my my phone in order to produce some internet. I'd probably just, like, say, you know what, we're going to go for a holiday. This is literally going to be the only chance we're ever going to get to go on holiday, because Claire and I, we never really go on holiday, because the YouTube channel is a harsh taskmaster and basically demands that you're doing something and putting out videos every single day. You know, even Christmas Day, we put out a Christmas special video. So I don't, you know, I don't work in the sense that I don't, you know, actually record or edit on Christmas Day, go and spend it with my family. But, like, you know, we get back in the evening and then it's straight back to let's put a video out, because, you know, there needs to be a video. So, yeah, I'd actually take the opportunity to actually, you know, go on a holiday for the first time in years. What's your opinion on violence in video games? You know what, go for it. I don't think there's ever been any significant evidence whatsoever that violent video games actually, like, have negative consequences whatsoever. I think it's conclusive in the slightest. So, you know, go nuts. Go flipping nuts. Like, some of my favourite video games have ridiculous, stupid hyper-violence. Like, Fallout 3 is stupid. Like, how you can just, like, you know, blast someone in the head with a shotgun, and, like, you know, they explode with body parts bouncing all over the part, and eyeballs just kind of flying off into the sunset. It's utterly, utterly ridiculous. But, like, I don't think it's, like, gross or anything, because it's so ridiculously over-the-top and cartoony. Like, hyper-violence in a stupid, over-the-top, cartoony fashion bothers me a lot less. Like, some stuff that's a lot more, like, you know, quiet and grim and realistic violence, kind of, it upsets me. Like, I decided when I was doing the end of, what's it called? The Town of Light, which is like a little kind of like semi-psychological horror, semi-walking simulator game set in an insane asylum. And there was a bit at the end of it where basically your character was, like, undergoing a lobotomy, and it was very grim and very visceral, and I didn't like it, and I actually cut it out of the video because it was really horrible and hard to watch. So, like, but I don't think that should be, like, banned or it's bad or anything. Like, it did its job. it accurately portrayed how utterly horrific that medical procedure was, because that was kind of the point of the game. So that was fine too. So you know what? Go nuts. As much violence as you want. I've got no problem with it. If a video you released only got 100 to 300 views and no one gave you an answer for why it was so low, no audience answers either, would you panic or just assume YouTube did a YouTube thing? I'd just assume YouTube did a YouTube thing. Welcome to the world of YouTube. That just sometimes happens. But yeah, sometimes, like, you know, in a kind of associated question, sorry, I'm gonna kind of answer a vaguely similar question, which is sometimes videos just don't do as well as I think they were going to, and I can't predict it. Like, I've no idea why some videos do well when I think they shouldn't, and why some videos I thought were absolute kind of sure things don't do much at all. Sometimes it works out nice, like, I thought For the King was going to be a popular video, and it's gone on to be a popular video. Thrones of Britannia's not been a massively watched series, so kind of, you know, I was always assuming, okay, so Total War people like the historical Total War, so, you know, the Warhammer doesn't get watched that much, but Thrones of Britannia will be watched more, but no, it's kind of interesting that people are really up for watching the old Total Wars, but they're not even up for, like, the new historical Total Wars, which I find really, really interesting indeed. So, you know, when Three Kingdoms shows up, I'll be really interested to actually see, like, how well that does, because I've absolutely no bloody clue. Given their point of view by the time of Fallout 4, do you think that having the Brotherhood of Steel in control of the water purifier ultimately led towards hydraulic despotism? Oh, that's a good expression. Is that perhaps, in fact, what allowed them to develop into a more authoritarian vein that we see them in Fallout 4? No, actually, I think it's fairly just, you know, explained by people, to be honest. Like, we know for a fact that Elder Lyons passed on soon after the events of Fallout 3, and Sarah Lyons was killed in action not long after that, which therefore kind of removed the two people who really believed in Lyons' mission, and as a result, the new kind of leadership reverted to a more traditional kind of Brotherhood of Steel position, which in all fairness we kind of see throughout the Fallout universe. Like, the Brotherhood constantly veers between, okay, we're military isolationists, oh, we're going to open up slightly, oh, but we went back, and now we're going to open up a bit, oh, but we went back again, and we're going to open up a bit, and we're back to where we were. Like, they're constantly varying between isolationists and not, but I'm not going to talk about that anymore, because that's all in the Fallout 3 video, so I'm not going to spoil it. This is very important. What is Tabby's favourite flavour of treat? Hang on, I'm going to go check what flavour her treats are. Tabby's treats are salmon flavoured. However, I've made a terrible mistake, which is I walked into the room that had Tabby in it and picked up her treat thing in order to actually look at the label to find out what flavour it was. But while picking it up, it rattled slightly, and all of a sudden her head just kind of flicked straight up because she was in the room. And though she was asleep, she then immediately went to, ooh, treats? So now, unfortunately, I've walked out without giving her a treat. So I suspect she's going to be sour at me now. John, since this year is the World Cup, please tell me there will be a Beast Battle Simulator World Cup prediction video. I have considered it. I don't know for certain whether it's going to happen, but I have considered it. Yes, it's possible. And a question about Mass Effect 3. I have been thinking about this. I think what I might do is, just because there's so much of Mass Effect 3 that kind of doesn't work, but so much that works really well, I might just do a brief mini-series that is purely on the Citadel DLC, because I consider Citadel to be a really good ending to the Mass Effect franchise. Even though technically it doesn't actually wrap up any of the stories, it's a fantastic ending point regardless. So I might just do Citadel, because I think Citadel's really, really damn cool. Star Trek or Star Wars? For me, Star Wars. I enjoyed some bits of Star Trek. I like The Next Generation, but I'm not a massive Trekkie, whereas Star Wars, I used to be more into it than I am now, but I do still like Star Wars, and I've enjoyed the recent films. Any chance of Subnautica appearing sometime soon? Possibly, but honestly, it's not high up the list. I don't think it's going to happen soon. Have you read any of Brandon Sanderson or Patrick Rufus? No, I have not, and I don't know much about them, so feel free to comment and kind of sell them to me. Tell me what they're actually kind of, you know, why they're good and why I might want to check them out, and if I like the sound of them, I may well give them a look-see. Also, who is Jen? Jen is just a friend of Claire and ours who is visiting when we put together the announce, and then also began the stream. So we decided basically just to have Jen there, just because it amused us to have a random person just introduce the stream and then in no way explain. That just kind of, for some reason, tickled me the right way. I'm really enjoying the Frost series. When it started, it felt like it was going to be a mini-series showcasing a weird mod, but it seems to have organically mutated into a full series. Have there been any other series that have gone on longer than you originally expected? It rarely happens, but it does on occasion. One of them was Dishonored Death of the Outsider. That was originally just going to be a little showcase because I thought it was much longer than it was, but it turns out it actually wasn't. It's actually quite short. So as a result, like just because there wasn't much beyond what I'd already got to, I did the rest of it. But other than that, for the most part, I'm pretty good at figuring out what should and shouldn't be a series and getting that right first time. Stardew Valley will have its multiplayer release soon. Yes, I saw, and I think it is a good opportunity to potentially look at Stardew Valley. So I don't know exactly who with yet, because I actually haven't looked into the multiplayer, like how many people are allowed to be in it, but I do think it might be a fun opportunity, yes. What would you say is the worst video that you're proud of? Definitely How to Make a Cup of Tea. I love that video so much, and the absolute mess in the comments of people who genuinely came to get a video guide of how to make a cup of tea for some reason, and then get very confused and sometimes very angry. What is your stance on the potato-tomato pronunciation debate? Well, there you go, there's your answer right there, potato-tomato. I'm still waiting for part 2 of Lego Harry Potter Kill Everything. You're gonna be waiting a very long time then, I'm afraid. Obligatory Dragon Age Origins question. Have you ever given any thoughts to which origin story seems the most interesting to you? The only one I know about is where you're the noble family in the castle, and that one amuses me because, yeah, you and your dog go into the pantry and then step out completely smeared in blood and then just carry on with conversations as normal and no one seems to notice or comment on it, which does amuse me quite a lot. Are you familiar with the music of Bear McCreary? I am not, but feel free to link some suggestions. Sometimes people do like linking me to music to see if I like it, so go right ahead. In Fallout 4, you only live once, fast travel will be disabled. Does that mean you need to clear out Fort Strong in the Brotherhood of Steel in order to have vertibirds, even though that quest killed Grill's bears many times over? I'll need to look into that. I haven't actually verified whether, for example, I can go and clear out the vast majority of the mutants before I get there. How many of them spawn in just for that quest versus how many of them can be cleared out ahead of time, and whether I might be able to also give myself an advantage by mining up the area earlier, or whether it like takes place in an entirely different like fake sub-universe, like sometimes Skyrim shoves you into. Because if I could basically go ahead, like there, clear out all the mutants, and then like mine the hell out of the area, and then the moment the vertibird comes close, the mines kill the mutants as they spawn in, that might be a solution to getting around the problem of the vertibird section. But if I can also kill everything but the actual behemoth, then the behemoth's not so bad, because the behemoth's mostly throwing rocks, which don't seem to do that much damage. They kind of damage the vertibird more than you most of the time. So I'll need to have a little look-see at that, because getting the vertibird seems pretty essential, yes. Political question. Any progress on Brexit? No. Of course not. There's no progress on Brexit. There's just a whole bunch of questions repeatedly being kicked into the long grass. It's such a mess. I don't know. It's such a bloody mess. What's your favourite faction in Fallout 4? Ooh. Difficult, to be honest. Like, I kind of like playing as the Railroad, because you kind of feel like you're playing as, like, super badass, awesome, like, you know, secret agents and whatever. So that feels kind of cool, I think. So probably the Railroad. With Skyrim over, has your view on the Elder Scrolls universe changed in any way? Not so much, to be honest. I think I need to play, like, brand new games to get a view of that. Like, Dragonborn was great, but I'm not sure it really changed my view of the entire universe or anything. So, I mean, like, it was fun to learn some stuff, but clearly I misunderstood some stuff. Like, you know, where Talos and Tibus Septem and everything all fit into things. I got that a bit wrong, I think. Question for Editing Claire. As an avid SFF reader, how do you perceive the world of the Elder Scrolls games? Do you find the lore interesting or not? Ah, good question.
Ooh, that is a really interesting question. I like the lore in Skyrim in general because it touches on a lot of story elements that I like as a sci-fi and fantasy fan. My favorite bits would probably have to be some of the stuff in Dragonborn because it's just really weird. Like, the super weird jellyfish creature that John didn't want to look at. That was super cool. Or the fact that there was so much ash across the land, like this slightly apocalyptic vibe going on there. Like, that's definitely something that I find super interesting in terms of the lore.
And there are also some music suggestions, the third movement of Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, which I found very pleasant. Though I did enjoy the second one you suggested more, the third movement of Zovak's, sorry, I've probably mispronounced that, Violin's Concerto. That I enjoyed quite a bit more. That was quite jazzy. Do you have any interest in playing Fallout Frontier from when it comes out? Honestly, Frontier is the less interesting of the big transformation mods that I've seen floating around. I'm more interested in New California. I think that one looks a lot better. And would you ever be willing to do a Dwarf Fortress live stream? Oh no, that'd be a terrible idea. I think if anything it would be a video, because that game it's very deep and lots of people are very keen on it, so I'd need to do some research and then have to be a lot of downtime and confusion edited out of a video, I think. Is there a reason you love hexagons so much? Oh, the important questions. Probably it's just because it's kind of just a running joke, because like big complicated Euro board games are often made up of hexagons. So, you know, obviously squares you can only like leave or enter via, you know, 4 different ways, whereas hexagons it's a bit more interesting when you make a board out of them, because then you can actually extend 6 ways. So it's just, I mean, I guess you could do the same thing with octagons for 8, but for some reason board games seem to have a lot of hexagons going on, and a lot of video games that are kind of somehow based on some of the mechanics of board games, like say Curious Expedition, which I think is a little bit influenced by some Euro board games, are also based on hexagons. Wait, is Curious Expedition based on... I think Curious Expedition is based on hexagons. That's hexagons. I think that's on hexagons. I might have to double check, but I'm pretty sure Curious Expedition is on hexagons. So it's just that, yeah, board games like, say, Archipelago, which I love, is on hexagons. So it's basically just a bit of a running joke based on that, to be honest. How many holes does a straw have? Just one long one all the way through. 2 game recommendations, Armicrog and Starmancer, both of which, unfortunately, I don't know anything about, so we will look into that. I've seen an advertisement on YouTube for a censorship-resistant, community-controlled alternative to YouTube. Do you think this model has any chance of not turning into a cesspool? Ah, you've put your finger right on the problem there. Yeah, I don't see that as likely. I don't see that as likely at all. I think, unfortunately, yeah, there do need to be some forms of community standards on any video sharing site, because there are some truly reprehensible and illegal things that you don't want to be sharing a platform with. And, you know, the question really is where you draw the line there. And if your entire service, the entire kind of foundation is built on, okay, we'll take all the things that more reputable sites have decided they don't want to be associated with, and that'll be our starting user base. Yeah, the problem is when your foundation's a cesspool, I don't hold out much hope for anything you build on top of the cesspool, to be honest, no. If you could only eat one type of food, what would it be? Ooh, probably pasta. I think I could eat a lot of spaghetti for the rest of time, quite happily, until I died from whatever things aren't inside spaghetti. What's your opinion on Back to the Future? Decent set of films, I enjoy all 3 of the trilogy, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a massive fan, but I definitely don't dislike them. They are fun little adventure romps. I think they're fun films. I think they've aged pretty well. Well, actually, they've kind of aged hilariously, because some of the stuff in the future is just kind of hilarious and ridiculous. But they have kind of, you know, I think as films, they've aged very well, and they're still very fun to watch. If you could have Obsidian reimagine any game or franchise they haven't already made a game out of, what would it be? I was tempted to say for the Skies of Arcadia, but I think that would work. Skies of Arcadia works as a linear narrative thing, so it would need to be an open-ended game. Ooh, Mass Effect! An Obsidian Mass Effect would be amazing. Yeah, that would be great. Let's do that. Especially given Mass Effect is currently in a bit of an odd place where it doesn't know what it wants to be anymore. Yeah, give it to Obsidian. That'd be incredible. How do you handle procrastination? I have a bit of an odd solution, which is I used to procrastinate by playing video games. So what I did was I just turned video games into my job, and as a result I wasn't procrastinating anymore. I procrastinate just as much as I used to, it's just now it's technically work. So basically figure out however it is you procrastinate and somehow turn it into a job, and then you'll be sorted. Any chance you'll try out Path of Exile? That one's come up before. I'm pretty sure that one has been recommended before. So we will add it to the long list, and I will give it a look-see at some point. And I think, in fact, that is actually your lots. Blimey, this is going to be... I think this might actually be one of the longer ones. Once this is all edited down. This could be a very, very long one indeed. And also, I'm very hungry because it's 4:30 in the afternoon. I haven't had my lunch yet. So, I'm going to go have my lunch now. On that bombshell, we end the Patroncast. Thank you all so very, very much indeed, by the way. It is always lovely to put together the Patroncast and hear from everybody. And yes, indeed, thank you for sticking around, because the Patroncast is what keeps this crazy train going. I will leave things off there. Hopefully, I will see you next month. But in the meantime, I've been John. It's been many a true nerd. And this has been the April 2018 Patroncast. Thank you very much, and goodbye.